Test 1 2 3. Are we working? How are we looking? Those were some. Oh man, those were some games and a half. I have a feeling I might be a little too low, but we'll find out. I'm actually being like a good streamer and doing mic tests and all the stuff. How does one? There we go. Right? All right, testing audio 1 2 3. Oh, I don't know. Is the audio okay? How does one do this? Okay, I think this is fine. All right, now we're just waiting for doc respawn to finish. I suppose I could do this. 어디 갔지? Properties, deactivate, activate. And somehow it's my camera ain't working. Is my camera on somewhere? Properties, deactivate. Something. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. Oh. Wait, how do I? Okay, there we go. Activate. Perfect. All right. Turn those off. Okay, there we go. This is hard, man. This whole streaming thing. Ooh, that is loud. Okay, I think my microphone is okay. I'm doing it through Discord, huh? We got a good episode. We got a good episode today. We got a great episode actually. Uh all right. Let's give Doc Respawn a call. Let me turn off my camera. Yo, hello. Sure. Okay, and then if I pop this out, yay, it actually lined up. We 50-50'd it right this time. Nice. All right. Cool. All right, I think you're a little loud on my end. I can fix that. I'm gonna report this Luxor AFK. I don't care if you're on the enemy team. It's an ARAM. Doesn't matter. If you AFK, you deserve to be punished. Oh wow.
I mean, I hate it. Like, it's an ARAM, right? Like, I get you're tilted. Like, just play it out. It's like 10 more minutes. Uh,
Yeah, that's fair. Oof.
all right. I'm gonna leave my answer to your first question in Twitter DMs. Okay, okay, yeah.
Oh, you don't have to. That's fine.
No, no, no. That's from Wade.
Oh, okay, okay.
I asked him a question earlier about some art stuff, so he said he was just gonna DM me separately. So,
Oh, I see. All right, cool.
all right,
The
let me
art thing, right?
pull up your thing too. Okay. Also, if you guys want to watch on Cloud City stream, I'll give you a shout out real quick. Uh, are you streaming on Twitch?
I am Twitch and YouTube, yeah,
Cool, cool.
and
And YouTube,
TikTok.
nice.
Yeah.
And TikTok. I gotta figure out how to multi-stream, man. That's like because I want to stream on TikTok more, but I also don't want to neglect Twitch. So I gotta figure it out this weekend, maybe.
Yeah, I can send you a link. It was just like a extension on OBS, and then I just have like
Okay.
my horizontal streams and my vertical stream on like the other side, and I just do it that way.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. Yeah, if you could link me that, that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, I don't remember the name, but it'll be somewhere in my add-ons, and then my YouTube history will find. I'll just pull it up. All right, so uh, we had some banger games, man. Those were some really good games.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad I went to game 5. And actually this time it like legitimately looked like it should have been game 5 instead of like, wow, why did both teams int 3 games in a row?
I'm assuming you watched that Dignitas game.
Oh, dude. The dig series was like, what is happening? Yeah.
All right, so I'll start off with the series that we just watched.
Okay.
Um, Team Liquid did win, and APA afterwards had mentioned that they had a weird meta read, like they weren't completely confident. Just in general, what were your thoughts watching the game, and then we'll get into like the meat of the disputing afterwards.
Um it's hard to judge their read on the meta because okay, also caveat, I've been watching a lot of LCK lately, but I know they are a patch behind.
I think on
But I
playoffs we're on
don't.
the same patch, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, the same time. Okay, I wasn't sure because since I was in Korea recently, I was able to watch LCK finally, like on time, and their meta read is very different than what we're seeing in LCS right now. So it's super interesting. Like they were prioing like Garen Nasus was heavily prioritized. You know, a lot of just different mid lane picks than what we're seeing. I think Smolder was one of the commonalities. And so I was curious, you know, like with TL, like the games that they lost, it looked like it was a bit of a Zeri diff, especially that quad like double pop off was like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you even do about that? But I don't know if it was like a meta read issue or like they didn't play their normal style of League of Legends. Like they were kind of I don't know. Both games that each side won felt like it was a weird type of setup for them. Like FlyQuest actually looks really good. I'm actually impressed watching FlyQuest play. Umti got kind of gapped a couple of games. Like Inspired was all over. So I don't know if they're like maybe it's the issue of they're still playing old jungle picks like Maokai and some of those kinds of picks, and like even the brand was kind of weird. I don't know. It's hard to say because I haven't been playing as much League, so I don't have a feel of my own for the
Mm-hmm.
meta. But for what I'm seeing in other regions, the meta that they're playing is also a little different. So
Yeah, that's sort of what I actually talked to APA, and he was kind of describing how since um, the introduction of Nasus into the mid lane pool and the top lane, like it's just
yeah,
thrown everything. Like so many dominoes have fell, and it's like
yeah,
gone to the point where like yeah, they felt like they didn't have the best meta read, and they obviously could have done better, and you can see how like LPL has a very different meta than LCK. Than now, even like last series, we saw a Mumu like picked every
yeah,
single game, and then here we kind of let it drop, and it was Maokai
yeah.
that was so it's been really cool to see, and I'm excited, especially for when Worlds starts
Hmm.
because the West is gonna boot camp in Europe, and I'm assuming that the East is gonna boot camp like stay where they are, and so you're gonna come
Right.
in with very different metas, and I'm really excited to see if we can get certain advantages by pulling out certain things that they might not expect, or if they're just gonna have a better meta read. I feel like they never have a better meta read, so Who knows?
Yeah, no, a lot of times they seem to just out diff skill wise. And it's like you look at the comp and you're like, there's absolutely no way LPL wins this. Like they hard drafted against themselves, and yet they just take two random fights in mid game and just win everything. Like it's really odd. It's almost like the meta doesn't really matter as much. I think in some ways, hey, maybe this is a good thing. If the meta is shifting towards champs that are not as mechanical, that kind of gives us an advantage. Uh, if we're seeing Garen, Garen, Nasus, Prio. I saw LS just tweet out his read on the meta right now too, and there's a bunch of picks that have gone kind of unnoticed as well. Like Swain hasn't been picked, but anytime you start seeing heavy focus on melee bruisers, I mean, Swain's always kind of viable there. And he's been really strong in top lane and in mid lane against the right matchup. So I haven't seen any Swain picks yet, but it's something that I do think high-low players have been kind of looking at more from what I've talked to them in Korea and in the US and NA. So hopefully we see some Swain soon.
I don't know that we'll see Swain, to be honest, just because I
Yeah.
feel like the last person that pulled out Swain was 2018. SZN played Swain bot. That's the last time I can remember
No, no,
Swain in
no.
the LCS.
2021 Showmaker.
In the LCS?
Swain, yeah, in Worlds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the last time Swain was legitimately pro viable. He was very strong. Jojo Pune played Swain. Showmaker played Swain. It was I was really hoping he would get a Swain skin, but not to be. Um, yeah, it was that was the year that Swain got his I know all the Swain stuff. That was the
Yeah.
year that Swain got his Tiffany chroma for the Crystal Rose skin.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's funny that you even remember the skin, the chroma of a skin. Damn.
Well, because it was the only time he's gotten like a legendary. It was like one of two. It was him and
Uh-huh.
Akshan got the two chromas. But it was yeah, that was the last time Swain's really been played in pro ever. I think the only time I can think of is uh, Shogo played it in a NACL match, but that was that's not it's not
Yeah.
tier one pro. So yeah.
So after this game, are you feeling more confident for Team Liquid internationally or less?
Um, I would say I feel about the same because okay. So here's the thing: I'm a big believer, and this is going back years now of watching LCS teams and then watching what they do in internationals. I don't like when LCS teams are hard stomping in LCS because what that says to me is that our region, we already know it's a tier below, LCK, LPL. And if you're hard stomping in this region, you're not being tested. A lot of times you go in and you try to play like that, and you're not getting pushed the same way. You're getting punished much harder. I actually think it's better that we have scrappier games. We have scrappier series right now, in terms of like getting teams to get out of their comfort zone, having TL play from behind, having TL figure things out, having TL go to game fives. I think is really really good for TL internationally. I don't know if it says that they're going to do better or worse because of how they played against FlyQuest. I think FlyQuest is actually really good. I'm really glad to see FlyQuest stepping up compared to kind of the mid-season that they were like not doing as hot as we expected. We look at that roster, we're like, this should be a top two, top three team. Um, but I don't think they really showed it. This playoffs run they've had is much more convincing for them. I'm much higher on FlyQuest now than I was previously. I'm about the same on TL. I think, TL, I'm glad they got pushed a bit. I didn't see anything glaring from them that was like, oh my gosh, they actually are frauds. I think we have a lot more to discuss about C9 like coming up.
Oh yeah.
But um you know, like I definitely I'm still happy putting TL FlyQuest in my top two, C9 probably right behind. But
This is giving me back in 2019, there's a team that made it to finals and went 5 games with Fnatic twice. And then that team ended up winning MSI and making it to Worlds finals. And that team was G2. And a lot
yeah.
of G2 members mention, and their coaches mention, like, hey, we had Fnatic. And Fnatic were actually a really good team, and they were constantly pushing us. And it feels
Mhm.
like we finally have that. We have that
Yeah.
really good team in Team Liquid, and we have that team that's right behind you. And guess what? If you mess up a little bit, if you have a weird meta read, we're going to push you all the way. We might
I,
even win.
I'm actually really really glad they went to 5 today because they're gonna get a break now. Like both these teams are not gonna be playing competitive stage games for a little bit compared to the other lower bracket. Well, actually, well, FlyQuest is right. No, they get a buy as well, right? Because they're top two. I'm a little
Are you talking at
lost on
Worlds?
the.
Yeah, they get a
No,
bye.
no, no. For LCS.
Oh, so they're gonna play Friday. So FlyQuest is playing Friday against the winner
Gotcha.
of C900, and then
Got it. Okay.
Saturday is when Team Liquid play the winner of that matchup.
Okay. So yeah, they're not doing the full gauntlet because like if C9, let's say C9 wins, then they have to play Friday, and then they have to play against
Yeah,
Saturday. Yeah, so it's a much more consistent like prep work for them. Whereas now TL sort of gets a little bit of a break. Like, okay, you can take a day to like, recover and then start your real prep work. But I think it's good that they got pushed to 5 because if they just went 3-0 and they're going into finals like, okay, we're the best team, right? We're good. This is always where I see teams stumble. Like I have to look at the stats, but I've always been a big believer that going top seed is actually in some ways a huge detriment. And talking to a lot of managers and coaches, they kind of feel the same way that, yeah, everyone says, oh, it's lower bracket comfort zone, but it is a real thing because you actually get more prep time. If you're top seed, you have no one to scrim. That's a major issue too. Like you have nobody to scrim because the teams that are basically trying to, consider going up against you in finals, they're not going to really scrim you the week before. They're going to be scrimming other teams. And a lot of times that they end up with no scrim partners, which is why in the past C9, when they were always upper bracket, they would always run against their academy team the last 2 weeks of playoffs, which is unfortunate for them. It was good because they actually had a good academy team. But I think for a lot of other teams, it's a bit of a struggle. Like who do you play against? Fly has Fly challengers, which is good, and TL has their challengers team, so that's maybe not as big of an issue for them. But I definitely think sometimes staying in the competitive state, like last week, is actually a good thing. But yeah, at least getting game 5, they got more competitive stage games than they would have, which is always good. They're going into it thinking, hey, we can't just rest now. I mean, that was a close series. It honestly could have gone to FlyQuest. So hopefully that keeps them sharp, like keeps them grinding.
I
I
think
don't think we have
that
to worry about it with that team, but
yeah, I think that lower bracket like comfort zone is just so much cope from the upper bracket
yeah,
losers.
it's
It's
not. I
so much
wouldn't call
cope.
it a comfort zone. I think it is. It's a good thing in terms of like you have to stay competitively. But there's no wiggle room to get complacent at all. Like, when you're lower bracket, your back's against the wall. There's pressure. There's like there's competitiveness that you have to maintain. I've seen a lot of teams go upper bracket and just kind of like go to sleep that last week and not realize. There's also the mindset of like when you're lower bracket, you fight your way into the finals. You fought your way all the way there. It feels like you took everything. Like it wasn't given to you. You weren't gifted this really easy cupcake run. Which sort of is like the bias towards upper bracket, right? If you end in first seed and you get into upper bracket, you stay in upper bracket, you're technically playing most of the weaker teams all the way to finals because of the way that the first week you play against the lowest seed, right?
But
Or
the
you
upper
get a
bracket
bye and then
final,
you
you
play against
have
the
to play
lowest
the
seed.
second best team, right?
Yeah, once, yeah. I mean, both ways
Yeah,
though, right?
so
Because
so
then they
you
have
have
to
one
play you.
easier
Yeah,
series, yeah.
right.
But
So
like,
it's supposed to. I mean, it's supposed to be that way though. It's supposed to reward you ending the season in first. It's supposed to give you a slightly easier runway to the finals. It's not like, oh, you're automatically going to get there, but it's as biased towards you as it can be.
yeah, I think what people fail to consider about lower bracket runs is one, yes, you're not running, you're not physically exhausted, but these games, like going to game 5 when it's taking like they start at 4, they like my time, they finished at like 8:30, right? Those are
Yeah,
like 4.5 hours. Last yesterday there was a pause, so it went to 5.5 hours. Like those games are
yeah,
exhausting. You come back, you don't have nearly as good prep. You don't have side
sure.
select. You've had the show and everything. You've been playing your hearts out. You showed everything that you
Yeah,
had, and like the
yeah.
other team just has better prep. Unless you're Cloud9, you don't have enough coaches to prep. But we'll get to that. So like it, I
I
think there's a
I
lot of
definitely see that.
disadvantages.
I agree with that. I think that the prep side, and I think the amount of time, the amount that you have to show is a huge detriment to the lower bracket teams, and they're gonna have to pull everything out next series. Like they have to, right? If C9, let's say, well. If they 3-0 100 Thieves tomorrow, then they don't have to do as much, right? Because they're only going to show 3 comps, potentially, maybe 2. But if it goes to 5 games tomorrow, now C9's pulled out everything. FlyQuest is going to see all that. When they play on Friday, then, or whoever plays against FlyQuest, then FlyQuest have to pull all their stuff out again. And yeah, so TL is just sitting there watching everybody,
Mhm.
and they for sure have the coaching staff. They for sure have the willpower to actually sit there and grind through all of it. It should be an advantage.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, I played chess and I played some tournaments as well, like online and offline. Nothing like FIDE rated or anything. But
Mhm.
when you have to come back from the lower bracket and the other guy is just watching you play, because you lost your
Oh,
first game,
yeah.
and the other guy is just watching you play, and he's just writing down on a piece of paper. Nowadays on notes, he's just like, oh snap! When he plays the King's Indian, he actually just goes e4. Like it's just like, oh man, I just can't play this again, right? In chess, obviously, is very different because like you don't know what he prepared for you, and I'm not at the
Right.
level where I have a second who's like giving me lines between games or anything like that, you know. But it's always a disadvantage, and it's so comforting just being able to watch. You know, like when I'm
Yeah.
in the upper
Yeah.
bracket and I'm watching the guy that I have to play next, and I'm just watching it, and I'm like, oh, interesting. All right. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
He actually makes it like I think I can push him there, right? It's just it's so much more
Yeah.
comfortable. And
Especially seeing tendencies, right? Like,
yeah.
especially like now going back to league, it's a lot of times when I watch teams prep pre-series for a team that they're about to play, not having just played or whatever, they're looking at a lot of like tendencies, like, oh, if we show this, this is what Quad likes to do. He tends to want to bias bot lane when we show this. So they start really putting pattern recognition together into how to put players where they want them, how to maneuver like macro on the other side as well. Like it's really interesting. One of the big things I really liked seeing from TL actually today that I didn't see as much of from a lot of other teams is it's just kind of what we talked about the last time we chatted about them. Their willingness to trade to get something. Like they I think it was game two, maybe it was game one, I don't remember. But they basically went and bought and they took bot turret and they took, I believe they gave drag. It was just the way that they just made a decision to essentially come up positive on gold. I think they took a fight, they killed someone, and they took a turret instead
Oh, the
of
bottom
playing
lane
for the
turret. Yeah,
objective.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that was so smart, and they committed so hard to it. That's why they even got a kill. Versus like kind of posturing around drag, like they wanted to see
Mhm.
what they could get, and then ending up backing off, which is what I see most LCS teams do. They posture, they fight for vision, and when they realize, hey, we don't have any cooldowns, let's just back off. They've now given they've got nothing for it. Whereas TL like forced a fight, got a bunch of like flashes, got a bunch of ults, and they killed someone, and then they just took turret and they gave the drag. It was like very interesting how quick they made a decision macro wise to just, hey, let's just give this, let's get as much as we can out of it. And I think that's one of the things that shows the level that they have against international, which is going to be super important because that's where LCS teams really struggle is when they make a play, they don't commit and they second guess a lot, and you see that hesitation constantly bite them because LPL doesn't do that. LCK rarely does that, especially the top tier LCK teams like T1, Gen G. Although maybe T1's not top tier anymore. I don't know like what's going on right now.
Yeah, T1.
HLE, Hanwha, like these teams don't hesitate when they make a macro decision, right? Like whoever shot calling says, "Hey, this is the play," and they hard commit. They move in, they set everything up. They have these set plays in mind, and they just execute. And until LCS starts doing that, it's really hard for us to match the tempo that they have. So I like seeing that from TL. I'd like to see it more from FlyQuest and C9. I think C9 is probably the biggest offender of that, where they sometimes don't look like they're on the same page, and so they'll half commit, or they like really take too long setting the play up, and it ends up being kind of int when they do go in.
Yeah, I
So
think that game three, especially like what you're saying, is like they had the Amumu coming, just like walking into them after losing Soul, and you're like, what is this Amumu doing? And then there's our Nectin flanking from behind. They don't see him, but it takes a little too long, so they can kill the Amumu,
yeah,
then kill the Nectin, and then it's like game over, and
yeah,
VA gets a pentakill. I know exactly what you mean. Like if it was just like
it's
a
yeah,
little more crisp.
exactly. Those little timing issues are so huge. They're so huge because you don't get to set that up in slow motion. You kind of have to see it coming 30 seconds before and then play those 30 seconds in order to enable it to all kind of orchestrate together. And it's really hard. It's really hard to do that. So um, the good thing is like, hey, they're going for these plays. They're the turnaround too. I think it was game 4 from FlyQuest, which was the pentakill from Zeri. Right, like they just lost a really bad fight, and it looked like TL just completely swung it back. And then FlyQuest just committed to another fight at Baron. They're like, let's just fight this. And it was like, okay, like I didn't see the details. Maybe Zeri came back with an item. I don't know why they decided like, hey, this is the fight. Maybe because they knew ult cooldowns were still there, but that was so smart. Like just full commit to this play. Like you can't let them have Baron. And the way they fought it though, they waited out the timer. They got everyone's health bars low, and then they just went in. And Zeri gets a penta, and then they turn the entire game around and end up winning. So it's really hard for I think a lot of LCS teams to do that when they just lost what feels like a game-ending fight.
Yeah, quad stocks are super high right now. Like he
Yeah.
replaced Jensen. He's so good. And speaking of stocks, like this guy, if he's not in the LCS next split, like on FlyQuest preferably, but on any other team, I'm gonna be very disappointed. I
I
don't
I
like.
mean, I can't imagine a world they don't keep him.
I mean,
Like
maybe he
what?
goes back to Korea. That's the thing.
Uh, so
I hope not.
historically, players don't do well going from LCS to Korea.
There's Huni. I mean, I think he's the biggest example, right? We don't have
Like
too
when
many
did he go?
pros.
Whoa. I should preface, I guess, like recently in the last 5 years. Like
I,
who's gone from LCS back to LC? I mean, I guess Ruler, sort of like,
Ruler didn't go to LCS.
or Viper. I mean Viper.
Viper didn't come to LCS. That was a very different Viper. The top
Oh, it's
laner?
a different Viper.
Yeah,
No,
we
no,
had a
no,
top laner that was Viper, named Viper, and then there's a
no, no, no,
LCK.
no. Bot lane for FlyQuest. It was
Oh, you mean not Viper? I see. You mean Prince, but he went to LPL.
Prince. Yeah. He went LPL. Yeah. Hey, thank you for the raid, Ison. How's it going? Yeah, I actually no, you're right. You're right. I mixed it up then. I was thinking Viper. I was watching LCK and I saw Viper and I was thinking he came LC. No, it was Prince. Yeah, no, I just don't think of any players who have come LCS and then gone back and been
Because LCS
good
is
or
usually their
better.
retirement ground. Like
Yeah.
Crown came
Well, it's
back here.
I mean,
Yeah.
I also hate calling it that because it implies that they came here just for cash to, but at the same time, it's like when you come here, you lose some of what makes you great in the other regions, especially LPL, LCK, which is your mechanics. Like your mechanics fall off. And that's just one of those things that happens with the ping issues, all that stuff. Like, I don't think Berserker this year mechanically has been playing as good as he did year one.
Do you think that's an A problem? Actually, we'll get into this when we're talking about
Yeah.
Worlds, but I do want to talk about the person who was replaced on FlyQuest, which is Jensen.
Okay. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Jensen had a
Oh,
phenomenal like spring split to the point that
yeah.
like he had a deathless series against Jojo Pune, who was the reigning MVP. He
Mhm.
like 3 0'd, he 3-2'd Team Liquid, like made it to the finals, made it to MSI, and yet he still gets replaced, not looking too hot on Dignitas after returning to them after a split. Does this guy even find a spot next year?
Honestly, I mean, I hate saying it because I like Jensen as a person. I like him, personally as a, but I don't see a world in which any roster can sign him without giving him a minimum contract. And I don't think he's the type of person to take a minimum contract
Do you think he's not on
because
a minimum right now?
I don't know. I don't know what the stats on Dignitas. To me, he might not be because Dignitas feels like they put that roster together to try to make Worlds as a last run type, like last hurrah type thing. That should be a very expensive roster that they have, right? It could be, and then on the other side, it could be they're all on minimums because these were all players that didn't have a team. Like I could see it both ways. I don't know. I don't have enough details on it, but I just can't imagine that roster was put together where all five players are on a minimum contract.
I mean, I've heard both rumors to be honest, and I don't value much, but I heard like, oh, this roster
Yeah.
wasn't as expensive, and I heard like they actually had to ball out a little bit. It wasn't like
Yeah,
giving people like
but I
300K
don't know.
plus,
That's what I
but
mean is I could
yeah,
see I could see a 50-50 both ways because knowing Jensen was a player who also held out for more money. Sven is a player who was holding out for a while. Like Spica held out. Like these are players who have historically held out, but at the same time they might have learned from that and been like, I'm just gonna take it if I have it. So I don't know. I don't have any insider information on contract details for that roster. But to your point though, is Jensen worth signing? There are teams I can see Jensen being viable for, but I wouldn't pay him more than a minimum contract to do it. Like he's stable. That's what you want out of him. You can't build a team around him, in my opinion. I think the reason he was good on FlyQuest was he did his job and he had a team that was trying to play, around inspired around like getting Masu going. Like there was other threats on the team. It wasn't like he had to carry every game. So I think he's more comfortable in that role as a second. I don't think many teams really could do it. Like, okay, let's say everybody's favorite team, Immortals, wants to make another run for it. You know, I like Insanity. I like what he brought to the team, but he was super unstable in mid.
you mean Mask, right?
So
For
what?
Immortals,
And
Mask was
Mask,
on.
or
Are you talking about
Oh,
Shopify or?
Shopify. I think it's
Oh,
Shopify.
okay.
Shopify and Immortals, either one. Super unstable mid, just not really able to get anyone going if you have an unstable mid lane. So Jensen could sort of provide stability there. Um, but would I pay for Jensen over someone who had more upside like Quad? Absolutely not. Like Quad, I don't think we've seen Quad ceiling. He's a rookie. Like this is
He's not a rookie. He's played like over
in
100
LCS.
LCK games.
Oh, okay. Well, in
Yeah,
LCS, yeah, he's his first year showing up in LCS. So he did really well in challengers, like on their challengers team. So it's like I think the upside is just through the roof for him.
so I see your arguments on why. My problem is your arguments are the exact reason why I think Jensen's actually going to find a spot. Now, I think you have to have a very specific roster around Jensen at this point in his career. I do think that he can have
Yeah,
bounce back splits. Like last year on Dignitas, he was not good, right? And then he comes back and he shows up really big on FlyQuest, honestly. But I think it's the pieces around him and the coaching staff that enabled that more than him, just because he's not the type of player who's grinding solo queue. If I'm not mistaken, last time I checked, he was like Heartstuck Masters or something. Like he just
he's
doesn't play
not.
solo
Yeah,
queue.
I mean
Yeah,
he kind of got flamed by LS about that because he went to Korea to boot camp and he only hit masters. Like,
Yeah, that's not a good sign. I know he's like, oh, I don't take it try hard. Like, look at this stage, either
yeah.
you try hard or you
Well,
just don't try at all. You know, like
I,
you're
I mean, I think my biggest criticism of him is, especially right now, okay, like with Dignitas, it's probably a team wide issue, right? Nobody was playing that well. But also, this was his meta. Like when he had control mages unlocked, he had his zero open, he had all these like comfort picks, but at the same time, he didn't pop off on them. And then you should never, a player with his status as being this long in the league, you shouldn't be a control mage player. You should pretty much have a champ ocean by this point.
He used to when he first came in. He was playing the Vagar. He was part of the reason 2015 C9 went 3-0 in week one was because no one had an answer to their Vagar Tristana comp, and no one
Yeah.
was playing Vagar, and then they banned it, and then they went 0-4. But in 2015 he was playing the Echo. 2016 he was playing the Echo. He was playing the Blanc. He was playing, he was playing a good Azir. He was playing a good Oriana, and he was playing Zillion. He had a champion Ocean. It's just as time moved forward, he's just playing less and less champions to the point
I
that they
mean,
were
I
just
think
putting him on
that
Annie.
might be related to what you were talking about, though. If he's not grinding, how is he going to maintain that? Like
He
he
he brought
can't
out that way.
continue
He's
with,
like one of the better ways that we have in
again, a
LCS.
control mage though. Like that fits his play style really well. But
Uh,
his Zeri leaves a lot to be desired. I
His
was
Smolder
like,
as well, yeah.
yeah, he's not an ADC player for sure. Like
His Tristana is not it
His
either.
Yone was, he's had great games and he's had horrible games. So it's kind of, I don't really know what to think.
And I
Like,
think it's especially because he's a good control mage player, he's gonna find a place next split because they're gonna be like, oh well, guess what? Riot's buffing Oriana, they're buffing Azir, they're buffing all these control mages.
uh,
Chances are, like, we need a stable mid laner because we're gonna take a chance. My thing is like I don't think the GMs in North America. I think we have two very very good GMs. Probably like I think we have like four good GMs. But we're gonna have
yeah.
8 teams. One of them is gonna be like whatever. I just don't think that we have good enough GMs that they won't take him based on like the fact that he's a good control mage and they can build around
Well,
that versus getting someone with more upside.
100% agree with you there. I think the scouting and the GM just ecosystem in NA has been pretty bad for a long time, and you see it in a lot of the rosters that are being put together. Like I saw the Dig roster put together. I'm like, I can see how on paper, like a lot of fans would be like, this is a good team because these are a lot of players I know. I was like, they're top four at best. I don't see this doing what they think it's going to do. Like it's just not constructed in a way that made sense.
Do you know where Dig
Um,
finished last split?
what, sixth,
Fifth, sixth.
fifth, sixth?
Do
Okay,
you know where they finished the split?
I'm guessing sixth,
Fifth.
fifth.
The
Okay,
same
yeah,
spot.
yeah, exactly.
They did all of that, and to just to make things worse, they lost twice to the person they kicked. Twice.
Yeah,
Like that. That just. I mean, come on.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty embarrassing. I mean, like, it's disappointing to say the least. But it also, highlights the issues. Like, could you have put together a rookie roster where you promote up a bunch of players, you keep XU for another season? Like, could you have done it and gotten the same place? Probably. I think XU probably could have played much better if he had supporting players around him, like actual winning lanes. Like it's kind of unfortunate, like the whole way that went down this season for them. Um, I definitely think you're right though. With GM player selection, player scouting, there's always been a huge issue in NA with that. I don't think I'll give you a hot take. I think getting Jensen as a control mage player because he's stable is actually kind of shooting yourself in the foot when there are plenty of control mage players playing mid right now in NACL that could probably be slotted in for cheaper and like basically fulfill the same role with higher upside. Uh, you could take Shochi right now, plug him in, and basically coach him up what you want to do. You keep his champ pool limited to 2 to 3, and his upside is insane because he can also pull out a Kali. He can also pull out Yone. He can pull out like some of these other, his own pocket picks that Jensen just doesn't have. But he's very, very viable just keeping him on Azir, keeping him on Oriana. Like he can play, Syndra, all these other champs. So
My problem is we don't have enough players that have names, and when I mean names, is like not Spyrex, Sniper. Sniper was like
yeah,
this. Everybody was hyped for Sniper. Everyone was waiting for Sniper for 4 years. We've been waiting for him. Even if he turned out not to be good, guess what? Someone was going to pick him up just because he had that
he has
name
a
brand
shot.
behind him.
Yeah, he
Exactly,
had a shot.
and he had a brand behind that too. And like you look at in challengers right now in NACL, and like Spyrex is making a name for himself. He just made it to international tournament. Like congrats to him.
Mhm.
ABO is a known quantity. Like no a GM, like the GMing that we have in North America, they're not going to give that player a shot. And like
Probably not.
Mask is leaving. Let's just be honest. Like Immortals, like
Yeah.
and I would
I
be
think
surprised. Do
Immortals
you
could
take
probably
Palafox or Jensen? Like at this point, I would take Jensen over Palafox, right?
I don't know. I don't think Palafox showed up, not just because Palafox got bad somehow. I think that team had some dysfunction. I think there's some serious dysfunction on energy. Like if you watch that roster, like the way they were tilting and playing fights at like Dokla, Palafox, they were all just kind of running it half the games. Uh, it was very odd to watch because everyone was hyped on that roster. But then you look at what happened in off season last year, and they lost a bunch of their coaching staff. They lost some of their GM, right? Comic Platypus. Like he basically put that roster together, and then he's gone. Who knows, like how much more uh, environmental stuff changed with the removal of some of the staff too. I don't think Palafox is bad. Palafox has historically always been very good. It's just a matter of like, is he on a roster that even works with him anymore, or is he mentally checked out? Like he might have also. I haven't talked to him about it. I don't know, but he might have mentally checked out mid-season on that team. Just been like, you know what? I don't feel like tryharding when nobody else is playing what I consider good League of Legends. So um, there does happen sort of subconsciously. It might not be a conscious thing. It might be you just realize, hey, this season's not looking good. This team doesn't play the style that I want to play, and we're probably not going to make it. And it's like you just don't play well.
Yeah, I can see like affording um Palafox another year, like another split. I just feel like Jensen was more recently better. And I think Jensen's
Sure.
floor never really reached Palafox's floor of like literally Wing in and dying multiple times on different champion. Like
Yeah.
that floor
Yeah.
that you just saw. Like another thing is like you're only as good as your most recent performance. And like while Jensen's most recent performance wasn't what got them to Worlds on FlyQuest, it wasn't also what got them knocked out of playoffs in like a very embarrassing fashion. So I think like
Yeah.
with recency bias, and I just think like we have 6 teams. The top 3 teams are keeping their mid laners. Chances are like Quid is going to be picked up, right? And then I'm assuming Insanity stays, right? Or you promote Spyrax. Like I'm assuming we're gonna have one roster, and then like the last one, I just feel like Jensen fits into it. I find it hard to trust in enough GMs to like be like, oh, actually, we didn't just look at the top 2 teams in ABO and Spyrex, and we looked at the third or the fourth, and like we actually like this mid laner, and we actually scouted a mid laner from EU Masters or from LCK like Quad. I just or Quid.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
don't I
No,
don't have that
I
faith.
no. What I would like to see is if the way we're talking about it's like very theoretical. They're just plugging a player in. They should honestly bring all these players in and run in houses and do full tryouts and all that stuff. And instead of like, I'll tell you that doesn't really happen.
Well, it used to happen, right? You used to have all these
Yeah,
academy, like all these tier 3 like in houses to find out who's going to be on your academy roster, and like then you would promote from that academy. I
right.
remember like it used to happen all the time, and
I don't know why they stopped doing stuff like that. Like,
well, they
I
got
don't
rid of
care if you're
academy, so
Jensen. I don't care if you're Palafox. You already have all these, LCS titles, international accolade, all this stuff. Like, you try out because you need to see how these people play. You need to see how they interact with the team, and
Well,
I think that I
if you
don't
were
know.
in Jensen's spot, right? You're in Jensen. Dignitas is offering you a contract, and C9 are saying, "Hey, we're going to offer you that same contract, but you actually have to do a tryout. What are you going to do?" Right? You're just going to join
It
that other team, and so like it became
well,
when
it
there was so
depends
much
on.
money.
I mean, between those two, I'd try out for C9
Uh,
because you have a better chance of winning if you
sorry,
get on
maybe
that
not
roster.
Dignitas. Let's say Team Liquid. Team Liquid, FlyQuest, and C9, and C9 is
Yeah.
like, we want to try
Well,
out. Well,
why don't we actually like talk about the teams that are probably going to be doing it, right? So like Immortals and 100 Thieves, like maybe 100 Thieves. I don't know if they're going
I'm
to replace
assuming
him. I
100
think
Thieves and IMT are gone. So then you have Dignitas, you have
okay,
NRG, you have Shopify, right? Those
yeah,
are the three
okay.
teams
Out of
that
those three,
potentially could get rid of their mid laners.
so if I was Jensen, would I want to play on any three? I don't think Jensen would care too much. He'd probably try to pick the best team, which is probably out of those three, probably going to be Dignitas again or NRG. Palafox is probably not going to stay NRG just because he was on that team. But between the two, I'd probably pick NRG. So to the point of trying out, I think tryouts are you're only going to do a tryout if it means that the entire roster is doing tryouts, which means that it's going to be a more competitive roster and it's going to be built to win. So a lot of times, I think the reason all these players signed on to Dignitas was they heard from Dignitas GM, "Hey, just so you know, I got Sven, I got Jensen." Spica's like, "All right, sign me up." Like, and they tell Sven, "Hey, we got Spica, we got Jensen." Like, I wonder how much of it was locked in right away, and how much of it was like, "Hey, we can probably get a roster looking like this,
From my
licorice and all this."
understanding, Sven was the first person, and then I think Licorice. I know Spico was like the last one, so I think it was like Sven, Licorice, Jensen around the same time, and then Spico was the last one to
And
to
that
join.
lines up with what I that lines up with what I know about Spica too, so that makes sense. Yeah, like Licorice and Sven have played together, obviously, so they're like kind of okay. Like I think that's an easy sell. Jensen has played with Sven, played with Licorice as well, actually.
Yeah.
So that's an easy one. And then Spica is gonna look at those three and be like, okay, yeah, I think we can win. Like I think that's a stable enough roster. It's like all LCS pros essentially. Like, and then like why not? But I don't think the other teams can really do that. I think NRG. I don't know. I haven't heard anything, but I'm guessing they replaced Dokla. I think they replaced Palafox. I don't know what's happening with FBI. Um, I hope they keep contracts.
I
He was
hope
like
not.
the
I
one
hope we pick him up on
oh, okay.
Shopify.
Well, fair.
Yeah.
I meant that as in I think contracts actually played at a good level all season.
I
I think
agree.
contracts is very solid. He clearly is still capable of competing at the tier one level. I don't think he had a drop off, and it's really telling that he was able to maintain output and competitiveness on a team that was falling apart from like everywhere. Like it's so hard as a jungler to do that. So I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's going to be very good. He's one of those people too, where he's been on so many highs and lows in his career that I think he's just got that hunger in him. So he'd be a good pickup anywhere. I would love to see him go to Shopify if he gets an offer. Like
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, if he stays with NRG, I understand, but the solo lanes of NRG are like, in my mind, they're already dropped. Like if they
yeah,
stay for another year, it's just, I mean, come
that
on.
was it was pretty egregious watching how they were playing in the end of the season. Like,
Yeah, that'll be
come
their
on, you
fourth
guys.
year on their team, and like, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
It's
think Dokla for sure was checked out like early. Like you just watch certain players on stage, and he's one of those ones where he wears his heart on his sleeve. Like every time they take a bad fight or every time they lose something like a Baron, you just see him like lose his
yeah.
mind. Like he's so tilted. Um, but this was the season where I mean this split at least he didn't really dominate top lane at all. Like I was kind of disappointed watching a lot of his games. Like man, what has happened to Dokes? Like he's kind of been more of a liability than
He had
we
one good
expected to
split.
see.
Like even
Yeah,
that split that they won, it's not like he was good all the way. Like he got gapped in that upper bracket final. Right? You
yeah.
just completely destroyed. He couldn't pick, and then apparently he had to like learn Jax, and that was the whole thing. It was like, oh, they didn't ban my Jax, so they didn't know I play Jax because I didn't used to play Jax, and haha, I play Jax Rumble now. Oh my
And it was
god.
just so happened that Jax is utterly broken then too. It was like
Yeah.
disgusting first pick. Like yeah, ridiculous game. Like I get it. I guess yeah, it's hard because at least with if he's not gapping lanes, if he's not winning lanes on his own outright, at least he was playing with the team. Like he had
Hmm.
some really good team play, like flank timings, TPing in, covering lanes. He was playing for the team. This season was like this split. It was just very much independent. Like he was doing his own thing, solo dying, and then like Palafox was solo dying, and then Palafox would somehow get a lead, and then there's like int in a team fight, like
Oh, and
just
like they're saying
unplayable.
that Dokla did get violated in the lane swaps. There's so many times where like
True.
he was just, especially against Team Liquid, the last series he played 2 games of Rumble. That looked like a fasting Rumble. I'm like, that's
Dude,
not a
that
strategy,
the
man.
stat that they said, but he lost 7 Rumble games in a row before he finally won one. Like, you pick it in a must-win game and you win with it. But like, dude, why are you picking Rumble still? This champ is supposed to be like S tier giga busted, and you've lost every game on it. You're not even winning lane on it. Like,
They're opening Rumble. I think NRG are the only team that like Rumble's open for them. We saw it permaban
yeah,
the last 2 series. Like it's just you if you're on
every
red
other
side, you
region,
can't. Yeah.
Rumble is permabanned. Like, you can't play it. Like, they're leaving it for him. Like, it's so
They're
crazy.
like, please, let's make it
Uh,
8 games in a row. Someone, I think it was Molecule on Twitter, and he was like, "Oh my God, Dokla Rumble ulted his Rumble
Yeah, his winner.
history, his
Well,
winner." Yeah.
Whippo tweeted that too.
Oh, that was
He's like,
Whippo. Oh my God.
yeah, it was after they beat him on Rumble. He's like you Rumble ulted your own match history. Like,
Yeah, that was.
okay, real quick though, let's talk about Shopify just because you mentioned it. Like, okay, if you get, let's say contracts, right? Let's theory craft a roster for Shopify. You get contracts. You get who do you want to keep? Well, let's put it that way. Who from Shopify would you keep?
So assuming no changes, like we're not Quid is not suddenly available, River,
Yeah, yeah.
all the just assuming everyone's generally in the same place, I would keep Bvoy, and I would
Okay.
keep Insanity
Okay. So you're dropping your top, you're dropping your support, and your mid lane or your jungler.
Jungle.
So let's
Yeah.
say you get contracts because contracts should be maybe available.
Uh,
Who do you want top?
Probably Surdy.
Yeah. If FlyQuest doesn't put Surdy in at this point, I mean,
I mean, they have Bwipo. Are they really gonna get rid of Bwipo? If they get rid of Bwipo, I'll take Bwipo. But I'm just assuming they're not. They're not gonna make changes.
that's crazy because I mean,
Oh,
it
Boogie's
actually
going to
like
military. We're not kicking him. Just so you guys know,
yeah.
he's going to military. So he's leaving.
Okay. So yeah, FlyQuest is actually in a kind of a tough situation because you're right. Like, you can't drop Whippo the way he's playing now, but you also have Surdy on your B team that just like has been sitting there and has so much potential. Um, if I'm FlyQuest, you're right. I probably just keep Whippo and I sell Surdy. Surdy's gonna get sold for a lot though. We'll see if Shopify's willing to pay it. I mean, they should because they have money
They
and
do.
they've been investing. I mean, they've been investing in the roster, so they can
Honestly, more
theoretically.
than like the actual players, because I have like 2 rosters that I in my free time, like, oh, Shopify should do this, like just
Mhm,
pretend
mhm.
GM. But I think more than that, I just want them to invest in coaching staff. Like I want a Team Liquid esque coaching staff where you have a really solid GM who's constantly developing this coaching structure. So now they have so many. They have Rapid Star, they have Rainover, they have Hytham, they have like remote analysts as well. They have obviously Spawn. They just have so many people. So
Yeah.
I want to invest a little bit more. Like I would be down to bring in Kelsey Moser, for example, and maybe bring in a couple positional coaches. I would love to get SOAS, like put in Surdy and then give him SOAS, or heck, even pick up Sniper. Like if 100 Thieves are leaving and give him someone like SOAS. Like we saw what SOAS did to Dokla. Like I have a
Yeah.
lot of faith in like SOAS just from seeing. So I would do like I would really invest in
Counting
the coaching staff.
Platypus is still looking for a job. Put him in your GM office.
I
He's
don't
had
know.
a
Yeah,
history.
I think
He's had a history of building some really good rosters. Um,
I like players or caster. Like I'm a fan of GMs like Dodo or not
mhm,
necessarily Dodo. I have a lot of problems with what Dodo did. I'm sorry. I meant like Papa Smithy. Like I
yeah,
like what the mentality that when he went to 100 Thieves, what they did. I like Andrew Barton, like what he did on EG. I liked what they did. I like what he's doing now on FlyQuest. Like
yeah.
him and Empire, like sort of that core. I
So
think Peter
Empire
Dunn.
and Nasser Empire is like the secret weapon that people don't.
I've
They don't rate him. They don't rate him enough as a scout. He's such a good scout. He can pick talent out like very few can. Um,
I've heard that. uh, Yeah, I talked to him about it, and I talked to him about his systems, and like, I guess he is a very good scout. I'm not gonna take that away from him. Um, I just heard that like there are also other scouts that maybe get a little bit underappreciated because
Sure.
everyone looks at Empire, which is something that I was at fault in for because I just looked at this guy Empire and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's insane, you know?
Some people just have the touch too. Like Peter Dunn has an eye for talent that I've talked a lot about it with him, and it's like not even systematic. It's like he just sometimes knows, like watching their vods, he's like, this player's really good, and it's like a feel thing, and he's been right more often than not. So it's
That's
like,
true,
who's to say
yeah.
it's like
No, no, no.
who's to say
I
he's
still
wrong?
think he's
Yeah,
really good. I just my hesitation was like I don't think he's underappreciated. I actually think he's like properly
yeah.
appreciated. Just because
Okay,
like
that's fair.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
JoJo,
I would
Danny,
love
like
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the other, like, secret weapons that C9's had for a long time is Vagar V2, just in the background, like literally on the like speaker, talking, coaching them from afar, and his ability to read players, like, so he's got lists of like up and coming ERL players, all that stuff. Like his scouting is ridiculous in Europe.
And he's involved too. Like I see him like playing
Heavily.
games with them as well. I'm like,
Heavily.
okay.
His scouting comes from not just, oh, I think this player looks really good in bots. I've laned against them. I think they have
Yeah.
potential. Like, like it's very much hands on versus like a lot of coaches, scouts, all that don't actually play that much. He's made it a point to hit challenger, I think, every season. And a lot of times, like his feedback to players, I've seen him do this where he'll give them feedback on the meta or like how to play a certain matchup or a champ. It's because he goes into solo queue and he'll play 25 games of Aatrox and test builds, and he'll go and play like Soraka mid. He'll try almost everything in order to give more accurate hands-on feedback. And I think that's so under realized by fan bases, like why C9 consistently has been able to get players to a certain point with certain matchups. Like he does a lot more hands-on coaching with that stuff, lane wise and matchup wise. And so they always have C9 is one of those teams where even though lower bracket, I think they always do really well because they have so many picks. You actually don't even know half of the comps that they've already pre-drafted and like come up with until finals, because they'll have 4 or 5 iterations of comps that haven't even been used yet. Their draft board before every game is something like 20 slides. It's 20 comps. It's ridiculous how much they actually pre-prep and save. And a lot of times they'll have some of these comps that they prepped for FlyQuest, for example. And if they beat FlyQuest, they don't need it. They'll save the comps because they're like, well, we can still use this against CL in the right situation. They'll have like all this prep work pre-done. But yeah, people don't realize their draft board is something like 20 different comps every time for every series.
And then they only used
And
one last.
yeah, and that's okay. So knowing that, imagine my frustration when I'm like, dude, you guys ran the same comp back to back. Why? Lost twice. Like, what are you doing? Or they'll randomly, like, this is something that every team is sort of guilty of, but C9 especially, they'll randomly like decide player wise that, hey, we're gonna pick something different on stage. And I've heard Vega be like, "Wait, this is not what we prepped. Like, what are we doing?" Like, and it's sometimes like shot them in the foot big time, where they'll just like, "Hey, I think it's a good nocturne angle here," and they'll pull it out, and you're like, "What?" It's like not what you practiced, not what you prepped,
This is
not what
an
you decided in the meeting
anti-dive
last
comp.
night.
What are
Just
you doing with Nocturne?
just decided on a whim, like, or on a feel, like, hey, this sounds good, let's just pull it out. Like, but I kind of digress. I think scouting wise, yeah, Vagar brings a lot because, so C9, you said, oh, they don't have enough coaching staff. It's because they've consolidated so much of that into very few people, um, that it's become kind of burdensome, I think, for them. Because before they had, Mithy with them, they had Vagar, they had uh, who's their other assistant last year? I'm blanking. Because Mithy was head coach.
Yeah, last year they had I think two other coaching staff members,
Mhm.
and then they got rid of them, and then they didn't really like replace them.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Um,
think this year they've been running much more bare bones.
yeah, they have.
Um, and because I haven't worked with them this year, so I don't know a lot of it, but they're running much more bare bones. Like even their manager got promoted, which means he took on more responsibilities in other areas, stuff like that. Like There's been a lot more consolidation of tasks and work onto fewer people, so that might also be a factor in like their prep. Um, but I think okay, so if you can get back to Shopify, if you can get contracts, you can keep Insanity, you keep Bvoy. Uh, Support's actually really hard. The support pool is really bad in NA.
Yeah, I mean that's something where you could scout. You could bring in Ole. Like I'm down to bring in Ole. Also, chat mentioned
Yeah,
Rigby. Like yeah, bring in Rigby to Shopify. I think that would be amazing. Like you already have a Korean in
he's a good
Bvoy.
well, he's a good coach, but the thing is, Rigby is a Korean coach.
Well, you already have Korean players, right? You have Bvoy. If you bring in Ole, like that's another Korean. You could
That's true.
you still have another
But
Korean spot open. You know,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Sam
well,
Revan is Korean. There's
I
Simon,
think
their GM.
Insanity has the capability to adopt some of that stuff. What I mean by Korean coach is that they're very very system focused on like what they believe and what they play, and so if you bring in a coach like Rigby, and I worked with Rigby at EG, so Rigby's very very hard set on his read,
Oh, then he might
and
not be the best fit with Revan.
he's very hard set on his read, and that's the thing is that it worked okay with EG because he was working with Impact, who's also very hard set on like what they believe about the game. And so if you have a team that plays with that, it's fine, it's great. But if you like, let's say you put Rigby, oh Rigby was coaching C9 from afar
Really?
too.
Last year,
Yeah,
I thought he wasn't.
last split. Yeah, he was in an what's it called, assistant like talent coach or positional coach, something like that.
Oh, okay.
He was remote coaching with C9, um, which went okay. I think it didn't pan out too well. But again, C9 is one of the teams where you can't have that style of coach. Um, Reaper is much more flexible with how he coaches. I think, even though he's Korean, he's not the same prototypical Korean coach of like we have to play the game this way. He's much more outside the box a lot of times. Uh, and I don't. It's not like a knock. It's just a culture fit has to be there, and I think
Yeah.
a lot of teams don't do that well. They don't put the right coach with the right players culturally, and not. I shouldn't say culturally because it makes it sound like it's like a ethnicity thing. It's not. It's the team culture that they promote doesn't fit the player environment that's trying to be promoted by the players. So some teams need to have that flexibility. Some teams need to have the structure, and I think most teams, if you're running three rookies or three, first year players, essentially, you need structure.
Mhm.
You need to have someone shot calling from the team level, and you also need someone telling the team what to do. Otherwise, it goes really south because they kind of just all do their own thing.
Well, that's what River is on
So,
100 Thieves, isn't he?
yeah,
So, do you
yeah.
think 100 Thieves can take C9?
Okay, good. Yeah, so we get to the next point. No, I don't. I think 100 Thieves gets 3-1. And I only say 3-1 because I C9 will throw a game. I think C9 will outplay them almost at every stage. I mean, this is one of those games where C9 they've shown the potential to choke in games like this where it's kind of a trap game, because they're so favored. And 100 Thieves is going to be pulling out some different stuff. I know Grayson always wants to out coach the other team or out draft, out coach, like play whatever is good in the role. Sometimes that can backfire though, because if you have players that are not like 1-to-1 gonna win on hands or like the best laners at their role, like sometimes you can draft a matchup that if they're not as familiar with it, it might be really hard for them,
But you have
even if it's a
Quid.
winning matchup.
You have Quid. And Quid is playing
Uh,
like so good right now. Jojo like looks completely collapsed, getting solo killed in lane. Like just he is.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
that's
Cloud9
the
are
thing
like
is like I I think it's more like can Cloud9 play to the level that we know they can play at, or are they going to
no,
completely choke?
they're gonna
I
choke. And I'll tell you,
the narrative is there. The narrative is there for sure, but like uh
apparently, I don't know how true this is, but in scrims, Cloud9 have been choking. They have been slumping. We saw
that's
like
actually not a bad thing for them. Jojo Pune is a historically an enter in scrims.
and they're
Like this is
slumping
just how he
compared
is.
to that. Like that's what I'm saying. It's not like they were great scrim partners
Yeah.
to begin with, and now they're doing even
Right.
worse. Like we've seen Berserker get very frustrated, like last split when they were doing poorly. They completely collapsed against FlyQuest. Like game one, there was like some resistance. Game two, they were like, okay, we still believe they lost game two. Game three, they were like, okay, are we here game 4? They're just like, just get this over with. Like
I know, yeah.
they have
I
been,
mean, you drafted Berserker Zeri and he did nothing. It was
you know, it's over when the players look defeated, when behind the scenes they're being told like what has happened to Cloud9, they were fine just a couple weeks ago. You're going
yeah,
against a hot like a Quid is playing great. Like River is a
yeah.
leader, right? They know what to do. Quid just has to not lose early, and if Cloud9 are something and not crushing people early, they're not really gonna do much. Like that's the whole mojo of Cloud9 is like, hey, we were a good early game team, but we weren't good enough in the mid to late game to actually win games. So instead of improving on our mid game, we're actually just gonna get better at early games so that we don't have to improve. And they didn't. And then when teams caught up to them,
This is uh this is one of the things I think even last time we talked about it with Reaper, right? Like I was like he outthinks himself sometimes, and he's gonna try so hard to. Well, it's not him either. Like it's him, but then a lot of the players on that team justify why things happen based on events, not like reading in my opinion, like the actual problems with the way they played. It's like,
the
oh, the
symptoms
reason that
instead
we
of the
lost
causes.
mid
Yeah.
is yeah, because we screwed this thing up. And if we didn't screw this up, this wouldn't happen.
Were you watching
And
Kelsey
so
Moser yesterday? Like that's the
no.
exact point she was making on stream. She was like, so many times they're like, she was talking about Cloud9. It's like
Yeah.
they're, oh no, it wasn't Kelsey Moser. I'm sorry, it was Monte Cristo. I was watching Kelsey earlier today, and Monty was saying like, it seems like their takeaways are, oh, we should have fought better instead of like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe our comp wasn't good. Maybe we're not playing the comp the way it should be. Maybe we shouldn't be
Okay, so
looking at the
I'm
game.
glad I'm not crazy because like this is how I felt about them for a while. Where watching their VOD reviews and stuff, they would oftentimes hyperfixate on why did I flash here, not why am I here to begin with. You know, like and Vagar the whole time is trying to be like, guys, that's not important. Like, this is the big picture. What is actually happening? We don't care that we just played this badly. We shouldn't even have been fighting here. You know, like what is the bigger picture? And I think a lot of times it's really hard for the players on that team to not do that. And so they might look at a draft in which Berserker couldn't do anything and be like, oh, the problem was we didn't support bot lane enough. We didn't gank him enough. Not like, okay, was he even able to play the game because of the comp? You know, it's just it's
Or the lane
very
swap that
very
happened. Like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can
yeah.
happen.
We fucked up the lane swap and now we're actually behind. Like if you screw up a lane swap, you're actually behind. It's way worse. You're sacrificing XP on two people and all that. Like it's so bad. So I think they need to one not even try. Like if lane swapping is not how you've been winning games, don't try to lane swap. Just match the other. Like understand that the other team probably wants the lane swap. What do you do about it? I guarantee you, Vagar has a counter to this thing. I
Man,
guarantee
I
you
can't
they
wait to
have.
talk to Vagar. I was supposed to talk to him between spring and summer, and then he was
I
just like,
guarantee if you bring up lane swapping and why it's OP, he'd be like, "Well, it's easy to counter. We're just not doing it." Like there's a clear way to play around this that is not being exploited often enough. And it's like TL did it really well against T1, right? They knew T1 was going to go for the swap. They were going to dive at level 1, and so they just prepped for it and they turned it around. There's the one game that they took off T1 where they completely destroyed them, and it was like they completely flipped it on them. You know, it's like there's a way to do it. I think most teams just suck at executing right now for whatever reason. And TL and FlyQuest to a lesser extent are executing lane swaps really, really well. Like they're doing such a good job of it. It's such a huge advantage for them. But I don't know. I don't see C9's also one of the teams where it's like if you haven't been lane swapping all season, why are you going to start trying to do it? Because you think it's good. And it's like, well, we need to have that in our playbook. It's like we talked about last time too. It's like play to your strengths. Like you trying to play to a weakness is probably going to mean that you get destroyed because the other person's just better at it.
you know, Peter Dunn actually tweeted not too long ago. He said that the swap that Team Liquid did in Game Five. I wish I had seen it before I did my interview, but he was like the swap that Team Liquid did in Game Five was if BLG had done that swap, everybody would be VOD reviewing it and talk about how geniuses they are. And yet, because
Yeah.
it's Team Liquid, no one's gonna bat an eye. And I wanted to tweet and be like, that's good for us. Like, no one should be watching them. Don't watch them, please. Like G2, don't do your prep when
Well,
you play them.
it's like every time a minor region takes a game off of a major region at Worlds, everyone's like, "Oh my god, they played it!" So I mean, you watch what they did, and you're like, "Wow, they drafted like the most insane bot lane I've ever seen." They just level 1, the 3-man dove top lane. Like you watch what they did when they do that stuff, and you're like, "Why has no one ever done this?" You're like, "Oh, because they do it all the time in like in Brazil, and they just CB LOL, they do it all the time." Nobody's watching those games, like so it's it doesn't translate up there. But then when they pull it on the main stage, you're like, oh, there's like no way that's even possible. Like, how do they make this work? But
Yeah,
I do think like volatility is a good thing when you're kind of not favored when you're the underdog. But to back to the point though, I can see now that you talk about it, I can see a world in which Hundred Thieves
yeah, you can see
beat
it.
C9, but it's not gonna be like, oh, we dominated C9. It's gonna be how they won the last series. It's gonna be scrappy. It's gonna look like a mess. They're gonna barely pull a Baron fight off the skin of their teeth, of like someone missing a flash or something crazy, and then they've capitalized. Like it's gonna be something really, really chaotic if they win. I can also see more likely, I'm like 75% sure C9 took the beating and went back to the drawing board and are going to come back out and just be like, no, we are going to final. Like we have to beat 100 Thieves first. I really, the only way 100 Thieves wins is if C9 is watching today and is already prepping for FlyQuest. Like I can also see that happening. Like they're a team that historically has overlooked weaker teams and they will sometimes choke. Like every time they've almost had a perfect season, they've choked against the worst team in the league.
And you know who it
Yeah, have you
was?
noticed that trend?
You know who
Yeah,
it
I
was?
know. I know.
100 Thieves.
I know. So every single time like legit choked a game where they were the top seed and they lose, it's always at the lowest seed, dude. Like it's always like that. And 100 Thieves is one of those teams that capitalizes really well on that. Grayson, I have a lot of faith in Golden Glue to get this team hyped. Like this is their worlds. You know what I mean? Like this is everything for them. And so like David, biggest 100 Thieves fan on earth, like he tweeted back to Jay Marnie. He was like, we have nothing to lose. You have everything. And it's so true. Like this could be everything for 100 Thieves, for their fan base. If they're leaving the LCS by next season, what if they make a Worlds run before?
My understanding is already confirmed who's leaving, but that could
Yeah.
be like that could change. I don't know, but
But
that's
hey,
like
like if you're Golden Glue, like, look, guys, this is our last chance together to do something. Let's go to Worlds. Let's make a run. Let's play against T1. Like let's play against all the legends. Like C9 is, they have the just massive burden and the pressure of like, if we lose, this roster, which was hyped at the beginning of the year to be the strongest C9 roster ever, has missed both international tournaments and not won a title. Like that hurts.
we have never sent both APA and Jojo Pune to a national tournament.
Okay, well that's like
Two splits, I know, but like it's 100%. All right, stats don't lie.
all
They don't tell the
right.
truth, but they don't lie.
Yeah, we're looking at those stats now. All right. I mean, Jojo Pune has never been to a international tournament without EG. I mean, this is a lot of pressure, and I feel like this is one of those moments where, looking at the players that are on this team too, I don't know if they actually do well under pressure. Like honestly, Blabber has struggled a lot in situations like this. He's kind of been one of the volatile elements on that team when it comes to pressure. I think historically, Fudge has actually done pretty well being stable in these kinds of situations. Berserker, I don't know what happened from last year to this year, but Berserker just looks like a different player.
I agree.
Um,
He's not him anymore.
yeah, it's very odd. And I wonder if it's a combination of he's burnt out or he just feels like the NA sync is there. Like, hey, what's the point? Like, we're not even gonna. He's like watching LCK probably and being like, I can't even compete against these people with this team or something, and it's kind of killing his motivation. I don't know what it is.
I have heard this from multiple players. Now granted, not none of his teammates, but multiple players have said like that's Berserker when he goes international. He's just like not chokes, but he's never going to be the person to step up and like punch back. He's always going to be the person who's going to do his
Yeah,
job, and like he's not it. And this was back when Berserker was like him. And so hearing them say that and be like, "What are you talking about, Berserker? Like he's an MVP. He's like he came and he's like amazing." It's like, yeah, but just wait and see. And we're waiting and we're seeing, and like, does Cloud9 just get rid of an XSplit? Like, who knows?
I imagine there's a world in which they do, because he's for sure not on a min contract. Like that
Oh
guy's
yeah, he
being
was.
paid.
There was a bidding war for him.
Yeah, he's being paid to be the best ADC in LCS right now, and he's not playing like it. So I definitely think there's some serious discussion to be had about whether or not you keep him. He's kind of the last remnant of the Korea 9 roster, so it's like, what do you like at this point? Like, what are you getting upside wise? I think Vulcan is another player who does really well in these situations. He's going to be, I expect him to be consistent this series. He's hopefully going to be able to manage some of the other players. Jojo tilts in a weird way too, but he should be consistent in lane at least. I think Jojo's one of the ones where you got to get him something, get him hyped, get him a solo kill or get him like a gank kill,
He's
like
gonna
get
get
him
solo
ahead and
killed, man.
have
He's
him.
not solo killing Quid.
You got to get him some confidence. Jojo's a confidence-based player. Like he needs to feel like he's in command and he's in control of his situation. Otherwise, it's really hard for him. He's going to be reliant on somebody else stepping up. And right now, normally I'd say if you get Berserker unlocked, he will carry, but he just doesn't look like that player right now. So it's kind of odd. I think I play around Jojo Pian. I think Quid being somewhat newer, you have to punish him. You have to send like Blabber should just camp mid lane, honestly. Like they should be putting Thanatos on his comfort picks. He's been playing Renekton, maybe Ornn, like something safe, and then you just camp mid lane with Blabber. Have Berserker lane against their bot lane. I think their lane wins outright 2v2.
I agree.
I
But
think
Hunter
Vulcan
Thieves are
Berserker
gonna
just wins.
Hunter Thieves
Yeah,
they're gonna lane swap. They're gonna put pressures like put their resources mid. They're gonna have River leading
yeah,
the game. Like C9 are gonna have to ban like the Vi, right? Everyone's banning Vi. I just think there's I think that 100 Thieves are going to come extremely well prepared. You talked about this. Like Golden
yeah,
Glue is phenomenal. Not at like it's not like his drafts are the best drafts in the world. It's that he puts his players on things they can perform on, which is something
yeah,
that like I really respect in him where he's drafting to the players rather than drafting in a vacuum. And he
yeah.
puts them on comps that they know how to play and he lets his mid laner play what he wants. And we've seen him play Yone. We saw him on an elimination game. This might be your last game in the
He's
LCS,
Yas. Yeah,
and you pick Yasuo, and like
yeah, and it was insane.
it
It was
was,
so good.
yeah, it worked.
Yeah,
So
no,
like,
true. That's why I'm hoping. So this is what I mean. We've talked about C9's draft issues before in the past too, where I said Reaper outthinks himself. I really hope that they can just drop the ego and just pick the Amumu, like put Blabber on Amumu. It's a counter to Vi, and you actually have some really really good setup for other champs that JoJo can for sure play. Don't just default JoJo Azir. Like he can do so much more. I think if you have him on a champ with more agency. Um, I don't know. I think bot lane is a dilemma because you need to have Berserker on something. If you can get Zeri, I just keep putting him on Zeri and like
he's not doing what he used to do on Zeri. That's the thing.
that's the problem. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
like
It's like
you give him
if you're
Zeri
putting
and he
him
just loses.
if you're putting him on the best champ in the game for him and he's not performing, something is up because Zeri's clearly playable right now. Like
We
you
just saw
two
17
pentas.
and
Like
1
what?
to Zeri. Yeah,
Like it's unreal. So she's good right now. I just don't know what the issue is.
I think it's more that the team does not know how to create space, and I think that was one thing that Sven was like secretly good at was that he knew
Mhm.
what Berserker needed. He knew where to like how to set up fights. I think that's one thing that Inspired is like underrated for is that he knows
Yeah.
how to create space for his carries. And I think like that was one of the big reasons why Danny like succeeded in the way that he did was because he had Inspired and Impact, who's another great like space person to
Yeah.
create space. And I
Inspire is also he's also very selfless when he jungles. Like he will do what it takes to get an advantage in the game. He doesn't care if it comes at the cost of him being ahead or like what he thinks should happen. It's like, okay, he reads the situation, right? He does really, really well on champs like Sejuani. I think Inspire Sejuani is like one of the nastiest champs in the
yeah,
game. Like it's so good. It's the same way that like Blabber used to be that on Maokai. He
used to
had
be
like a
undefeated.
95% win rate.
He was
Yeah.
undefeated until
He,
the finals of last split or
right.
last year, sorry.
Right. That's what I mean. Like that is his champ, but I don't know. Like lately, it hasn't looked great, and it's maybe just an issue of like they're not playing around him enough because he has to play for them. And if you play for your bot lane and then they grief, like now you wasted everybody's time. Like so, I don't think he plays for them. I think he puts maybe put just put Berserker on Ezreal, you know, and you put Vulcan on a roaming support like Alistar, Nautilus, whatever he's good with, and you just play around mid lane. You get JoJo super ahead. You hope you can carry a team fight,
But
and then
JoJo's
by
not
that
playing
point,
that well. He's like dying solo in lane. Like initially, I would
yeah,
actually agree with you. I think in the very beginning from Spring Split, what Cloud9 should have said is like, we are not a jungle like carry role centric team. We are not an AD carry team. Like I know we can play for all roles. We are heavily investing in JoJo because like he has proven that if you put the resources in JoJo, he will deliver. He won
but
LCS that way.
that's
Like
yeah.
and they
That's
didn't
what
do
I'm
that.
saying though. Is that game one? So game one, I think you put Berserker on Kate or you put Berserker on Ezreal, and you let Berserker just free farm, just scale. You chill, do your thing, play super safe, scale up, or Jinx even. Like
They're gonna
Jinx
go.
is
I'm gonna
actually
tell you what's gonna happen. They're gonna go Kalista
yeah
Senna. They're gonna
yeah.
play for the early game,
I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna
and they're
lose
gonna
my
like.
mind.
I'm telling you, they're gonna go Kalista Senna. They're gonna go Corki mid. They're gonna go something like I don't know. Jungle is kind of a little weird, and they're gonna go Kasante top. Like maybe they go
Yeah,
Amumu,
yeah,
maybe they go for the Lily. Like I'm not entirely sure, just because like
yeah.
I
Oh
don't
my
think
god.
anyone's sure what their jungler priority is.
If you
But like
Corki Lilia, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm actually gonna lose my mind. Like it's a free loss, man. Like you just don't get anything out of that. Like you're I get it, it's strong. That's also the problem. That is one of the big problems, actually. I think with Vagar too. He will say like this champ is strong. We need to play it, but it's like this champ is strong at doing a ton of damage, but that's not how you're winning. You're losing games. You guys are winning or losing games because your Corki's caught out of position. Like it's like it doesn't matter how much damage he does.
that's why
Like
that's why I was telling you play Soraka, because
yeah,
with Soraka, it doesn't matter where the person is. You have your
yeah,
your ultimate, you have your redemption. You whenever
true.
they're low, you get to speed up towards them to heal them. Like you rejuvenate. You have so much like I call it forgiveness, right? I know her
Yeah,
ultimate is called Wish, but I call it forgiveness because at the end of the day, like Soraka is a champion that allows people to be forgiven for their mistakes. And when you're playing in
yeah,
like low elo or even high elo, like one mistake costs you the game. And like
yeah.
having a champion that's like, no, never mind, like undo, control Z is so OP. And like they don't really do that on Cloud
You know
Nine.
what? Actually, I haven't. When was the last time Soraka was picked in pro?
Probably the 2022 LS roster. I think they picked a Soraka mid.
Well, that was the last time Soraka was picked. That's
In
unreal because Soraka
LCS,
is.
we may have played at support. I think maybe end of 2022 there were a couple support games. But yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't seen
yeah.
her very
I'm
often.
thinking
She's so busted right now.
as a support though. Like she's such a good enchanter right now, actually, because of her silence too. Like Soraka, just if they pick MF and you
Soraka and
pick
lane
Soraka,
swaps. Oh my god, dude! Yeah.
you can't play the game. Like that's the other thing is that the prio on MF right now, and Vagar is a big MF fan, so I wouldn't be surprised to see an MF game. Like he's huge on MF right now, but MF is so counterable. Like compared to most other ADCs, her main ability, her ultimate, is like what you're playing for. It doesn't matter how well you position if someone just knocks you up, right? Or like CC stuns you, or
We
like
saw Yawn on MF
silences you.
like get zero value out of MF
He
ultimate.
got like a total of 3 ticks of her ult off that whole game. Like it's unbelievably bad when they have a comp that can just counter it. And so it's like, how can you ever pick MF except last pick? But if you're saving ADC pick for last, you're so screwed.
They're gonna go. Okay, I changed my mind. I didn't know Vagar. They're not gonna play Kalista Senna. They're gonna play Kalista Senna one game. They're gonna play
MFTK or something
MF
like.
Rel. No, MF Rel. That's what everyone's playing to set up for the MF.
Oh, I don't even. I also don't understand the route. Like, why is nobody playing TK? Like, TK is so giga broken except with Senna. Like, they only play with Senna, and it never made sense. Like, as an actual support, TK is actually super strong.
I think the problem with TK is like you don't get that engage value, and I think with a lot of like AP junglers or like junglers, we are seeing more Maokai, so we could see more TK, but like team fights are so
Yeah,
explosive.
you need to be
Yeah,
secondary. You're secondary
yeah.
CC, right? You get someone with a point and click, or you get someone with guaranteed root,
And
and
you
then
don't
TK
you don't
comes
win
in.
lane, which is another thing, which is in
Yeah,
these comps where like Senna Kalista is like super aggressive. MF Rel is like actually not bad in lane, especially once you get your Vamp Scepter, your Bloodthirster. Like
mhm,
they're I think it's more of like they're looking at it in totality rather than how strong the game is, which is why I would
yeah.
love to see Ole on Shopify because he's like, look, if the champion has a 54% win rate, Maokai support, like he's clearly strong. Like
It's pretty strong. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, like, I guess, yeah. I just hope that they can draft a safe lane, get Vulcan on a roaming support, play mid for prio. Don't play mid to survive. Like it's you're just giving so like C9. We talked about this in the last stream, but C9 is the one of the best, not anymore, but one of the best early game teams in the league, right? So if you're gonna play to that, then you need to be playing champs that actually enable you to have some like autonomy. Like they're just like playing for jungle, they're playing for top. It's very odd. Like I don't. And then you're putting Berserker on a champ, which he should be good on, but he's not. So you gotta get him off the champ. Put him on Ezreal. You know he can do his damage and just play super safe.
Yeah,
I will say like Berserker doesn't int at least. He doesn't. He's not
yeah.
eing in on people with Ezreal. Like it's very controlled, but he sometimes just doesn't output enough. I think, especially when he's on Zeri. Like he
I
should be
mean,
doing so much damage.
I like to give Berserker the benefit of the doubt just because I feel like his team has not played around him. And with AD carries, it's just like it's very difficult to do stuff as an AD carry if you don't have your team playing around you. If you don't have your team respecting
Well,
the fact that they need to protect, like we saw what was happening with Yon. Like his team was playing around him, but the Renekton would just had a Knight's Vow on him. The Maokai put the Knight's Vow
yeah,
on Renekton, and he was just going in, and it's like it was physically impossible to stop the Renekton from killing Yon. And then it was like,
yeah.
okay.
And actually, that's a good point too, because Vulcan is much more of an engaged support player, whereas Sven like wouldn't really do that. He
Yeah,
had
he was
like
playing for
20% of
Berserker.
his games were on engaged. He was mostly playing Lulu or Yumi. And so it's like maybe they need to put Vulcan on more enchanters, like because that was enabling Berserker to pop off a bit. But Vulcan as a player is like, oh, I want to play engage because I can. He's good on engaged supports. It's just maybe not fitting with how the team is playing. So
Yeah, I think also another thing is like the coordination. If you watch the series against FlyQuest, Cloud9, like Thanatos did not look like he was engaging properly. At least with FlyQuest, even though sometimes you'd be like, oh, he went a little earlier. Like if they just waited,
yeah,
like you could see what they're trying to do with Cloud9. It was like Thanatos was doing his thing, and it
this is one.
seemed
Yeah,
yeah.
this is one of the problems I envisioned when they first brought Thanatos in. Everyone was so hyped about him. He's one of the best, LCK challenger top laners. He wins lane, all this stuff. But we saw the same thing with Summit. It's like, does he play with the team or is he going to play his own game? And there's a clear communication barrier. Like, yeah, JoJo can sort of speak Korean. Yeah, I think Blabber can speak a little bit, but like, there's a probably a huge communication issue with Thanatos and the rest of the team.
Yeah, especially in game in like a high pressure situation,
Oh,
like
Berserker. Yeah. Yeah, but you don't want your ADC talking to your top laner. Like that's not the
exactly.
communication that needs to happen.
Yeah, so I just think that there's the ways, the methodology, like the vision of how Cloud9 can collapse and lose. And again, it would be a choke. It would be probably the biggest choke, bigger than their 2020 choke. Like it would be
Yeah,
the biggest choke in Cloud9 history. But like all of the steps are there, the stones are
yeah,
in place. You just need someone to push it over. And I think,
yeah,
if I
yeah,
had any team to pick to do it, this is the team to do it. I would love
yeah.
to
I
see
agree.
JoJo be like, oh, you want to play Yone? I'm first picking Yone. Like I'm gonna take it to you. I want to see him fight back. And like
Yeah.
the past 3-4 weeks, he hasn't been fighting, and I want to see him fight.
So that's also the part that I'm curious about is like whether or not the environment on the team right now is very centered around other players, and so he feels like he doesn't have the capability of doing that. Like I'm gonna first pick this, pick me this, or he feels like he has to play supportive mid, which really is not how he plays. Like he should be gapping mid lane and then carrying that lead into winning team fights. That's how he's always played.
That's how he
Like
won
he I
LCS, yeah,
yeah, it's like you can't
and
have him on.
MVP. Yeah.
Yeah, on these like solo, just like, oh, just farm up and play safe and don't do anything, don't rotate. Like it's not great. Yeah, and the last EG roster he was on with, arguably pretty mediocre pieces around him, like he had to hard carry, and he was fully capable of doing that with a worse team. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, but we'll see. So okay, let's see win cons for C9 is if they can get Jojo Pune to play like Jojo Pune, and they can get a winning mid lane and they can transfer that lead, they I think they smash them.
I think
But
that's their main win con is
if
like,
100 Thieves creates volatility and they get tilted, if they okay, let's go even further. If C9 loses game one, it's gonna be a rough series. I
yeah,
think
it's
the
over.
odds of 100 Thieves winning goes to like 70-75%. Like it's gonna be really bad if they lose game one. If C9 wins game one, it's still probably, I'd say, 65% the chance they win. If they utterly stomp in game one, it's going to be a C9 3-1. Because I think if C9 just if they unlock that confidence piece, right? All they need is one switch to where they play confident again and they actually play like, aggressive, assertive, like take grounds type League of Legends, like punch first, then they're gonna go back to what they were doing, all split and probably just destroy this team in 20 minutes. But if they let 100 Thieves get into a really scrappy, drawn out brawl and they're coin flipping 4 times a game, like who's gonna win? Like that's not where you want to be.
Yeah, like I do want to see C9 make it to Worlds. I'm a huge Bobber fan. He's from Maryland. I'm from Maryland. Like, I
Yeah.
I, I want to see him succeed. But man, it's just they're not making it easy
As
for
an
me. C9
LCS
is
fan
not.
too, like who do you want to see represent your region at Worlds? You want the best. You want the best teams. You want 3 best teams. I don't think 100 Thieves, as much as I would love to see the underdog Cinderella story of them making it to an LCS finals, like doing great and making it. I don't see 100 Thieves playing against international competition and doing well.
I don't think C9 is going to do well either. I think the
I
reason I would
don't know,
argue
but
for
like
100, the reason I would argue for
really,
100 is like they would get experience. I would love
yeah,
for Quid to get that international experience. Like, sure, he lane against JoJo and lane against APA and Quad, but like you start laning against Caps, you're laning against Knight, you're
yeah.
laning against, Xiaohu, you're laning against, Chovy. Like, it's a very different experience. I would
For him
love
as
for
a
that to
player,
happen.
but you're already saying 100 Thieves isn't going to be here, right? So they,
I mean, some other team
does
could
it?
pick him up in North
Yeah,
America.
maybe Shopify needs Quid.
Like
With
Sniper
some
as
international
well.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, Sniper
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I would like
I'd
that.
love to see Sniper do well. This is actually a good test for him too, because he is laning against international,
Oh, he is going to
competition
get like it's going to be illegal. What's going to happen to Sniper? Like,
against Thanatos. Yeah. I mean,
no, I mean against
I,
any international competition. Like, what's
oh,
going to
you mean
happen to
against an actual
Sniper?
LCK? Yeah. If he goes against
Yeah,
Zeus or like, it's not going to be good. But to his credit though, Sniper did go to Korea boot camp and played against all these players, and he
I
held
don't
his
think
own
they
in solo
scribbed
queue.
all the teams, but yeah,
Well, no, but yeah, and so he had some clips of him laning against
yeah,
Zeus
and
and
solo
like,
queue, yeah, but
yeah,
solo queue and competitive is very different.
it's different. It's for sure different. I know. Okay, so to go back to the C900 Thieves, I hope they give Sniper some like autonomy too in what he picked. I want to see his Aatrox.
It's
I want to
Riven,
see him
yeah,
pull out
yeah.
a Riven or something. Like,
Elimination
because
game, game
honestly,
5, go Yasuo Riven.
yo,
Yeah,
dude,
I'm so about it. I'm
dude,
so about it. Like, even if you
like
lose,
if
I'm
he,
so down.
yeah, if he pulls like Riven out into Renekton or something, like that's actually not bad. So if the angle's there, he can definitely play it or Aurelia, put him on Aurelia. Um, well, we'll see. We'll see. I definitely, now that we've talked about it, I'm less confident in C9 winning. I still think I'm like 65% C9 should be favored here.
I
Um,
think it should be a 90-10, to be honest. That's what I think
it
it
should
should be.
be, but given the context of recently
Yeah.
how teams have looked, yeah, I'm willing to skew it more towards 100 Thieves a bit. Um, but yeah, if you had $1 million to bet on this game, who are you betting though?
Cloud9.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like you can't say 100 Thieves is favored. I could see a world in which they win, but I'm not going to put $1 million on them. Like,
Yeah. I'd rather just take that money and buy two houses. But yeah.
right? But I'm saying it's like not your money. Right? You
Yeah.
wager $5, you win 1 million. Like, who are you going to wager it on? I'm going to put it on freaking C9.
Yeah, is the C9 I don't know the C9 mental boom. I think the thing is even if C9 mental boom, I think they still have a shot. That's the thing. That's what's
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, they're clearly they can out hands 100 Thieves if it comes down to it.
Yeah.
If they really get down to like just team fighting, like C9 is still one of the best mechanical teams in the league. They just haven't really demonstrated that in the last series. So I think sometimes recency bias also is a bad thing because you're like, oh, they suck now because they played like crap last week. But all year, these guys have been hand stiffing everybody, like, and it's made up for a lot of their macro errors. So if they can tighten up some of the macro stuff or just draft a comp that's easier to execute on, we know they have hands. We know they can team fight. They just have to play to their strengths. And if they win game one and it looks really dominant and they have the confidence back and they start actually crushing lanes, I mean, because 100 Thieves is also like scrappy. They've been making a lot of comeback wins, which although it's great, you don't want to be making comebacks every game.
But that's what they've been doing
Like,
since last split. So it's their comfort
yeah, but
zone.
eventually,
Comfort zone.
eventually gold lead does matter. You're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna get wallet diffed a couple times and be like, okay, maybe like we can't do that anymore. But I don't know. It should be a good series. I'm really excited to see these two matched up. Regardless of who wins, the way FlyQuest played today, I just think FlyQuest just probably smashes them
I
like
agree.
next week. I just think FlyQuest like look like even though they lost, they look like they were playing at a different level than weeks past. Like they were playing so well against TL.
My argument for why
And
FlyQuest was going to beat C9 was that FlyQuest have been like look at week 1 FlyQuest and week 1 C9 and where they are at playoffs week 3,
yeah,
and it's like one team has been consistently improving, one team has not been, like it's not as been as steep and maybe even like
I
more up
wouldn't
and
even
down.
see. Yeah, I don't even think they've improved. Like I think
Yeah.
they look worse than they did 2 weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago. Yeah,
Well,
FlyQuest
the
has
meta
been
has
trending in a
changed,
much
so
better
there's
direction.
there's that.
Yeah,
But I think overall they haven't really changed much.
yeah, yeah. We'll see. I mean, I think adaptability. We're talking about FlyQuest for C9. Assuming C9 wins, I think FlyQuest just destroy 100 Thieves if it comes down to it next week.
Yeah, I
If
think
it's
they
against
match
C9,
up
it'll
very
be a closer
well.
series. It'll be a closer series mainly because C9 will get the confidence of beating 100 Thieves, and they're gonna. C9's always played up. They've always played up to the competition, so they're playing against FlyQuest. They should play better, especially because they lost to them last time. They should definitely come into that series not with the confidence of, oh, we're the better team. That's always like this drives me crazy. Personal experience with players. C9 is one of the teams where I'd ask them, hey, how are you guys feeling about this weekend? Like, oh, these guys are trash. We're gonna beat them. It's not a problem. I'm like, oh my god. I like the confidence, but I also don't. You know, like you guys can't have that mentality. Like anyone can beat anybody. You know, like they've always had that bravado about them with certain teams. So that's what I'm saying is if they lose to 100 Thieves, it's 100% because they're already thinking about FlyQuest.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, it's funny you
They,
mentioned that because like there are times where I don't do this all the time, but sometimes I'll like go snooping around like, all right, Shopify, how you guys feeling?
yeah,
Like today's a big game. And I'll be like, dude, you don't understand. We are so confident. Like we've had the best day of scrims. I think we are a new team. We're gonna come in and this is gonna be the best. Oh, they lost 0-2. Like it's like no.
yeah. No, you guys got to think, hey, scrims look good. We're improving, but we're probably not like the better team. We have to play our absolute best, and they have to play not their best. You know, like that's usually the only way underdog teams can actually win. Like 100 Thieves has to have a day, and C9 has to have one of the worst days that they've had in weeks in order for
Honestly,
this
if
to
you're
be like,
GM of C9 and you don't make it to Worlds after everything that you've done, like after the amount of money you spent, like dude, I bet you JoJo is more expensive than the entire Hundred Thieves League of Legends operation. Like their
probably.
coaching staff and their
Oh,
players,
for
like,
sure.
it's just
JoJo was bought. Like he was, you had to pay that kid cash to get him on that roster.
yeah,
Um, and everyone knew it was going to happen. And you got Thanatos. He was not going to be cheap. Like
yeah. I heard DK
Thanatos
didn't let him
was,
go for.
I'm sure Thanatos wanted to start for an LCK team. You know, like he got paid a bag to come to NA. But if you think about most Korean players, like if you get a chance to play for a top LCK team, one of the top four, or you go to NA for a bag, you're going to Genji. You're going to like, you know,
I would, dude. I would absolutely. Okay, this is just my personal like. I would love to see Peanut in North America. Like, I am such a
oh,
Peanut fan. And like the thing is, he went from this crazy mechanical, like, I am going to outplay you on Nidalee and like I'm gonna play Kha'Zix to being this like cerebral jungler who just like his pathing sometimes leaves me at all. I'm like, I know I'm just like an Emerald player, but this is like heavenly sent. Oh my god, can I talk to you? I can't wait for them
oh
to
my
make World
gosh.
so I can
Peanut
interview.
against T1 was a monster in this last week. It was
Peanut,
he was it was the biggest jungle gap I've seen. Like it was brutal. Like he
yeah,
couldn't play
dude,
the
I would
game.
love to see Peanut on Shopify. Like, dude, I would be such a huge fanboy. I would be so obnoxious too. Like, you
Yeah.
would want to mute me on
It's
Twitter.
like it's like peak canyon. It's like you just dude, this guy's like playing a different game.
He is, he is. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of players, if you had any player in the LCS, like, okay, I know you're Doc Respawn, but let's just say you're GM Doc Respawn right now,
No,
and
I have no yeah, yeah. Now I'm like I have no affiliation.
yeah, so you're GM Respawn and
Mhm.
LCS, like Supernova happens in LCS. All the players are free agents. You're the GM. You have an unlimited bag, and you have to pick the first player you sign onto your team. All players in the LCS are go. Which player do you pick?
Mm. at this point in the season, it's kind of tough because
Well,
I think
for next season, right?
yeah,
Starting.
yeah, no, I'm saying like at this point in the season, having watched this whole season, because now it's skewed a lot. Um, Pick any player, no salary cap. I think this is really tough actually because I'm torn. Usually, it comes down to like what role, right? What role is most important to pick for? And to me, I think jungle is probably the one that you're going to see the most disparity.
Jungle's our most
Um,
stacked role, isn't it?
no, no, I'm saying, but like the most disparity in terms of like having the best jungler in the league
Okay,
makes a
yeah,
huge difference versus having like the best ADC or something.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm super. I'm leaning towards Inspire. Uh, that it's pretty biased actually, just because I like him. Like, and I like a lot of what he brings to teams, and I know he's hyper competitive. Um, and I think also by having a player like him who's an MVP in both LEC, LCS, you can attract a lot of other talent who wants to play with him. He's also got a pretty wide champ pool. He's willing to learn anything. I asked every player when I first started working, like, if you were in game 5 at Worlds, what champ would you pick if you had full, you know, like the draft is around you, you can pick whoever you want. He's like, whatever's meta. And same thing with Jojo. Jojo said he's like, I can play any champ. And as far as like, I don't care. I can play any champ. I can learn any champ. It's just what's good, and I'll play it. And so like I like that mindset. Um, so yeah, I think I'd have to, if I spent way more time thinking about it, I'd probably change my answer, but I'd probably say Inspired for now.
So I think inspired is a legit answer, especially because he's a leader, right? I think that's the one thing that you
Exactly.
kind of have
Yeah.
to have. Like you need this person who will lead the game and has an idea of the game. He's also good with rookies. We've seen him now with Masu. We've seen him with Danny. We've seen him with
Yep.
Busio. We've seen him with Jojo. Like he is a good player to have. He's he will run your team, but Umti is not so far off from where Inspired is. I think the delta between number, like if we're doing a draft, right, and I'm first picking, I would prefer to have Inspired, but I wouldn't be sad if I got Umti, right?
No, no, no. Yeah,
But,
you said
but,
open. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I know I'm
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
putting it in perspective. But when it comes to support is NA's like worst role, right?
Yeah.
And so I would pick Core JJ because
Mm,
first of all, Core JJ is a leader, right? People call him behind the scene. You'd know this. They call him like the maestro. Like he's just like
yeah.
he
Yeah.
sees angles. He's great and engaged. He won world championship playing like
Mhm,
the
mhm.
enchanters. He has a great mind for the game. He wants to play with rookies. He wants to level up the region that he's in. He's shown time and time again of like investing in North America. And so like you have a
Yeah.
great leader, right? And the delta between Core JJ and the second best support is so much bigger than
Oh,
Inspired and Umti, in my opinion. Because
yeah.
he
No, I
Hmm.
definitely agree with that all those argument points. I was actually thinking maybe I go support, and Core JJ would definitely be like near the top of the list for that for sure. I don't know. But one of the things I was considering also is how long have they been in the league? Like how long have they been playing? Because at some point, burnout gets to everyone in terms of like fatigue of just playing the game at a competitive state. And I don't think Core JJ is anywhere near that. He's said, I want to keep playing. But somebody who's been playing competitive League of Legends for 12 years, I'm like, at some point it has to give, you know? And so I'm wondering how many years I can get out of Core JJ from this point on.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking of longevity. I think what the thing with Core JJ is like he's one of the few players who's reached the high of winning worlds completely
Mhm.
burned out. Like I asked him about 2018, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you guys like completely collapsed after your first loss. You won your first game and then lost 5 games in a row. Like what happened? And he said, look, we had 3 years where we played every match possible. We went to game 5, like we went to all of the
Yeah.
gauntlet. Like we didn't make it through winning, LCK. We had to go through the gauntlet. We had to go all the way, and then we made it all the way to Worlds Finals. Didn't win in game 5. Did the same thing, and then won 2017, and then 2018 we did the same thing. We were just
Yeah.
so extremely burnt out that like when one thing went wrong, it was like the entire thing just collapsed, and you
Yeah.
could see it on their faces. And like he went from that level of burnout to like I couldn't even play the game to actually coming back and winning LCS in 2019, make it to MSI finals. Like he's one of the few players who's like crashed and burned and risen from the ashes. And
But
so
that's why I
like
say it's not like a mental burnout thing. At some point I'm just wondering like, hey, what if he decides like I've done everything now. I want to just have a family. I want to step away from pro. I want to coach. I want to do something else. So if longevity is not a factor, then yeah, he makes a lot of sense. Like he's going to build that first roster for you and develop it. If you bring in, the way I would structure, I'd probably bring in a rookie ADC. I would promote up because I think it's really easy to find an ADC with mechanics. You don't need to have them be super in depth in game knowledge or anything like that. You just pick the most mechanical ADC that you can find that wants to learn. You put them with kind of a veteran support that's worked with rookies. Inspired's already worked with rookies. You can play around that. And then, mid lane, top lane, that's the hard part because you have to pick basically one to prioritize. But whichever one you can get, then the other person's weak sided. And you just have to understand that. And so I think both are like for sure if I'm drafting a brand new team, it's support or jungle I'm drafting.
yeah, it has to
Like, I
be
don't
like
think
the
there's I
leadership
don't think
roles.
there's
I
an
agree.
argument around that. Like
It's either
you can pick the
inspired,
best
yeah.
mid laner in the world and you're gonna struggle because
Cloud nine.
you just can't. Yeah.
Cloud nine.
Or top, right? Like top is on an like yeah, you're top gapping every game and the rest of the map is falling apart. So um yeah, I definitely think it's support or jungle. Core JJ is the outlier when it comes to supports, just because of all those things you stated. Like he wants to develop talent. He's willing to work with rookies. Is willing to like mentor, develop programs. Like he really wants to grow the region. That's something unique to him, especially as a support. I can't name another support anywhere close when it comes to like the extrinsic game stuff. Um, in game, I think I don't think the disparity between Core JJ and most of the other top supports is as huge as it used to be because mainly, and this is also kind of skewed just because of the one season he had where it was like, what happened to Core JJ? I think it was like
Yeah.
last year. It was kind of weird to see it, and I don't know if it was because the team was good. They had a solid team. It was just kind of odd,
I
but
think
I
the
think it was also
environment,
maybe
like you brought in Marn as your head coach, and like he never
yeah,
even coached, and you had two players who weren't easy to be around. I'll just put it that way, you know. And so I
yeah,
can see that affecting, like he's human at the end of the day, right?
yeah. So I definitely think like he has a set way he wants to play, and I think the problem is also who was the ADC? It was G2's. I'm blanking now.
Mickey, sorry,
Ma-
Hans.
Hans Sama. Yeah, they did not vibe. Like they were on two separate playbooks. I think every time I watched them lane together, and it was not like both. It wasn't that either one of them was bad. They were just different in what they wanted to do. Like multiple times, I saw Core JJ engage, and Hansama was clicking back, and then the next game it'd be the opposite. Hansama clicking forward, Core JJ backing, and I was like, what is going on?
In
Like,
summer, yes, but in spring, up until the Danny, up until the Baron incident, like they were
mhm.
actually the best bot lane, and it wasn't even close. And
Yeah.
I think
So I
yes,
don't. How
something.
does that flip?
So I guess I don't know how much of behind the scenes you've heard. I've heard a little bit, and I just heard again it was like environmental things where like there were people on different pages and they like agreed to disagree and never got to the same page, and they were trying to play a League of Legends that was so outdated that
Yeah.
like what Hans Sama wanted to do was not what Team Liquid wanted to do. And I think
Mm.
Hans Sama is like the type of player that if the team just doesn't let him do what he does, like if you bring a sniper in Call of Duty and you tell him to like play short range or like pistols, he's not gonna do well. If you bring a like carry top laner and put him on tanks, he's not gonna do well. And I think you brought Hansama and didn't let Hansama play Hansama League of Legends, and so he didn't
Right.
do well. That's my understanding. But again, like you probably hear 10 times more things behind the scenes than I do. So
No. I don't know too much about TL, but it wasn't the type of play we've seen from Core JJ specifically,
yeah,
where he looked very disjointed from his own team too. And I think it was like a combination of okay, well, normally what I would do here is we would win at level 3 like we're supposed to, and then I would leave the lane and I would go help mid. But because we're not winning, I'm stuck here. And so he would like half roam a lot of times and then come back, and it was just like very odd. It was like that whole roster just looked really shaky in summer. But no, I definitely think he's clearly good. I mean, he's clearly still puts in the work. Like he's still got the notebook and like like does all his poor JJ magic stuff. Like so I think it's a really good pick. If I again I went to Inspire just because he was top of my head when you asked, and I think I wouldn't be unhappy building around him. Like he's definitely a player you can definitely you can build a roster around and it's going to do well. Um,
you
and
know how it used to
so,
be double
but
Tim
I
Bjergsen. Like those are the two like,
Dude,
like
dude.
stars of the region. I think right now, like going into the next 5 years, like no disrespect to Impact, I know he's like the third person up there, and like APA
Yeah,
is kind of making a name for himself. But at the end of the day, I just think it's going to be core and inspired, and I really hope we don't lose inspired to EU
yeah,
because the elevation that he's done in our region, like
yep.
I
That's the other
want to see
thing
him
that,
stay.
like, when he first came here from Rogue, other junglers were saying no. I think it was Peter Dunn was saying he actually changed how NA jungles
He did, yeah.
because Blabber wasn't getting pushed, and it was like when Inspired got here, like now that first split, he was out jungling everybody. Like there was no one who could keep up with him in jungle. So it, like actually forced NA junglers to improve at a much faster rate. Same way like I think Berserker came in and like all of a sudden we saw all these like ADCs suddenly mechanically get better.
Huni, same thing, like top completely
Yeah,
changed top lane. Yeah.
yeah, which is good. That's what we want. That's what we need.
That's what we
I
need from our
definitely
imports. I completely agree.
yeah. But based on your description too, I would not be unhappy getting Core JJ as a starting piece because like yeah, you could easily now feel more comfortable putting uh more rookies in. You know, like I would definitely take a rookie ADC again, maybe a rookie mid laner because you know
Yeah,
that your support can play with the jungler and like actually enable mid lane too. Like there's a lot you could do with having someone like that. I think we're on the same mindset though that you have to have a player come in as a leader and you have to have a player who can actually coach rookies.
the other
You
thing with
can't
Core
just
JJ is that actively is involved in Academy and he really believes in it.
yeah,
And like he picked Yon for Academy back in 2021, which is something that's
that's
like,
crazy.
yeah, he worked with Spawn to pick the 80 carry, not that he was going to play with, but that was going to be under him so that he could develop him. Like that level of
Yeah.
dedication is something that Inspired clearly doesn't do. And he hasn't been nearly as here long. So I'm not like blaming him
Yeah.
or anything. Like,
I don't know if he wants to. That's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
He's like
And it's
he's
very
more focused on
different.
his career.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's also very different. Like, so I do think that Core JJ has made a home for himself here, and that at least when I see him when I pick him makes it so that my future generations are also like I'm gonna have some sort of structure is gonna bring a lot of structure to my academy
Yeah.
as well. And I'm a big fan of academy. I hope Shopify like pick up a team. And
I
and
hope so.
like
I hope at least partner with one of the NACL teams.
I don't want
You
to
know,
partner.
like
Like, here's the thing. Here's my problem with that is that you don't get to develop coaches. And I think one thing that North America was starting to get, and I think EU has that, is developing coaches because we don't have coaches that like. I'm
well,
sorry.
why I mean when I say partner, like why not have it be sort of a feeder team? Like it's essentially an academy team, but you're just not covering all of their
Yeah,
resources.
like okay, if the academy team gets resources, like if your head coach gets to be involved with the academy coach, and like
Right.
kind of like how Cloud9 used to do it a little bit. I know you used to work with him, kind of like how EG used to do it. I think Immortals at some point had it where their head coach and their for their academy and their LCS rosters were like actively like once a week doing with each other. So like if you're actually putting in the resources, then yes, I would
Yeah.
be okay. But otherwise, I would prefer it being your own team because then you have to put in the resources.
I
Uh,
mean, supposedly Cloud9 is doing that with Blue Water. Like they are having coaching calls and stuff like that, and they're doing mentorship. But it's definitely not to the same level as Academy, especially C9 Academy, where they were living in the same house, and there's just so much they did with their Academy team. I've always like, I was actually pushing C9 2 years ago to pick up another amateur team, so they would have three teams. Like that's how you actually ideally in an ideal world with no budget restrictions,
I
every
mean,
team would have
Sniper
three
came from
teams.
that, didn't he? Like,
Yeah. Like every team would have three teams. You would have your EG did it too. They had their EG prodigies and
yeah,
then they
EG
had EG
Prodigy.
Academy. You have to do that if you want longevity and scouting and player development. The like I saw uh Ali, the artist, you know, she always tweets stuff like that. Like, how is it that no teams have
Ali Hassanin?
academy teams? Yeah.
That's the guy.
Like how is it that oh, is it a guy? I thought
Yeah.
it was a girl.
No,
Just
no,
because
that's the guy.
the picture is a
Yeah, you're
girl.
right. You're right. No, no,
Uh,
he's cool. I've had him on the
okay.
show before.
I've
Yeah.
never talked in person. It was just only on Twitter and stuff. But he always says like, how is it that no teams that have an academy or all the teams in top three, top four have academy systems in place? Like, why is that such a detriment according to them? But I think it goes deeper than that. It's like the amateur system into academy was really really strong, and even if you're not promoting all five players, uh, like Magudis like countered that saying, "Oh well, I think APA and these players they're outliers." But of course they're outliers. You have to have outliers. The
That's
whole
the
point of
point.
academy is
That's
not
the
to
point.
promote an academy team. It's to find the one player out of the 20 that you probably fed through the system that has what it takes to get to tier one, and you put them in your roster. Like it's always about weeding out like everybody, you know? So from challenger, you weed out 1% of players who can maybe go pro, you put them into competitive NACL. Out of that, you weed out 1% of those players to go tier one. Like that, it's always that weeding out system. So having an academy team in which you can pull one player out of five is a success.
That's the whole point of
Like,
academy. Like the
yeah,
point of academy
it's
is
never
like you find someone who you feel like is like the rough in the diamond, and and you like APA for example, you brought him up and you
yeah,
like you saw something in him and you developed that. Or the other like side of that, like with Jojo, with Danny, with
yeah.
Quad isn't really a rookie, but like with these players, they clearly have the upside that's maybe a little bit more obvious. With Masu as well, with Busio, but whether it's obvious or not, like that's the whole point is
But
to
you're
find
testing
these
other
outliers.
aspects,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
what C9 did with MNS.
That's
They
another
they
example. Yeah.
knew
Yeah.
they knew MNS was a better mid laner than
Diplex.
uh I just blanked again. I'm so bad at that.
Diplex.
Yeah, Diplex. Yeah, they knew he's a better mid laner than Diplex. Diplex had upside. He was actually a raw rookie, but they were really worried for good reason about MNS's personality. And so they used Academy as a trialing system to test his ability to compete with them in a competitive environment and not lose his mind. When they felt comfortable with it, they plugged him in. They win a championship. He goes to Worlds. He loses his mind, and then they took him out. But the system worked. You know, like the idea behind it was we use Academy as a basis to develop something in a player beyond just the game. And we need to see that in a real setting. We need to see that in a competitive setting. They did it with Sven. They bumped Sven down to Academy until he could demonstrate that he wanted to play at tier one again. And they brought him back up, they win a championship. It's like you like have something in place to use there. It's a tool. And now they don't have anything. So if you guess wrong, right? And you're like, man, these players that we
They have
thought were
blue
going to be
water,
great,
right?
but what are you going to do? Send like Berserker to Blue Water? You can't do that. Like, imagine.
I don't want to.
it's it's just you shot yourself in the foot. And I get it. There's the resource issue, but if you were to have an ideal world in which you have either unlimited budget or you actually allocate your budget to be the amount that you paid for this C9 roster could easily have sponsored an LCS team and an academy team
Just
for probably
JoJo.
less
Forget
money.
the entire like just the
Yeah.
amount, like
You could
the
easily
three
have run
quarters of a
both.
million dollars. Yeah.
Yeah. And very likely with the way that C9 is, the way that C9's coached, the way that C9 has players developed, you probably could have been top four regardless this split. And then you also have the future development. Maybe we have the next player to replace Blabber if he's done. Maybe we replace Berserker if he's done. You know, like how hard? I mean, we've already seen the success rate in pulling ADCs up is way better than any other role. Like plugging
Recently,
in an eight,
recently,
yeah, but
beforehand it
in general,
wasn't.
but plugging in a rookie ADC is the safest role to plug someone in.
Yeah, because you just need the mechanics and brain
I
off.
just don't
Yeah.
understand overbuying an ADC import is insane to me unless you're guaranteeing international performance. Like Berserker was phenomenal his first year, but internationally didn't really show up either. And so, okay, is it worth having that, or could you have promoted Masu and put him on the team and had basically the same performance?
I don't think so. I think if Masu went to C9, they would have destroyed his development. Like, okay, um, Team Liquid have Core
Mhm.
DJ. They have
Mhm.
like Rapid Star, who's like working with the player. They have so like positional coaches who actually help the players improve. Cloud9 don't have that, and I don't understand because Cloud9 used to be exactly what you're talking
Well,
about.
they
Like, where
used
did
to,
Blabber come
yeah.
from? Right? Where did Blabber
Well, I
come
mean,
from? Where did Licorice
where did those
Fudge?
coaches? Where did Star and Rainover come from? Rainover was
Well,
C9's academy coach.
yeah, and
You know,
Revan,
like
Revan was
yeah,
their C9
Revan
Academy
was
coach that
C9's
won with them.
assistant. He
Yeah,
was assistant coach too. Yeah, and academy coach.
yeah.
A lot of these other coaches that are in player development were from C9, and they have a history of developing players. Grayson Golden Glue was
Golden
C9's
Glue,
academy
yeah.
coach. Like
And he
there's
was on their academy
there's
and he played for C9. Like they
yeah
used to do this, and then
yeah
they after 2022 they moved away from that.
which is crazy to me because they were the best at doing it. Their academy team was called the Academy Gatekeepers because you had to beat C9 to win an academy championship every year. And they won back-to-back championships 4 years in a row. Like their academy. It's it's unreal actually how successful of a academy system they had, and they gutted it intent like they chose to remove it. They voted to remove academy. Like
Like
I'll never understand that.
the thing is, they had to compete with all the prices that were going up. But like, what if you don't spend a bajillion dollars on JoJo? You get quad instead, right?
Mhm,
You still pay everything else.
mhm,
You get three extra coaches
mhm.
for your team and an entire academy roster, and have money to spare. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, they've you know, when I talked to them about it, they were like, "Well, the cost issue." I'm like, they were making money selling players from their academy team until they basically couldn't do that anymore, which is the main reason I think why they voted to gut academy was that they originally were making a ton of roster money off selling players from academy to other teams to start as LCS players.
Or even promote them and then sell them like contracts. They made a
Yeah.
bunch of money off.
Yep.
Svenskeren and Zazel, like they kept being like,
Yeah.
oh, we scammed them, like no returns. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was like a thing, but that was a viable business model. And it wasn't like they were really scamming people. These players were good. They could definitely compete. It's just an issue of like, are they continuing to develop after? Probably not. Because the other problem was like other teams had zero development. And so it was almost like you were hoping that C9 was giving you something that you could develop on your own as well. But if you have no development on your own, they're not giving you their best players, right? If C9 sells a player, it's because they've already decided that they're not going to fit into the new roster. They're not at the level that they want. They're going to sell them. Like this is the same argument against importing. You think LCK is going to import us their best players or LPL? Like, well, LPL doesn't even deal with us anymore.
I
But
mean, they wanted
like
Jojo
LC,
Pune.
yeah, but I'm saying no. Is LCK going to send their best players to
Oh
us?
no,
Absolutely not. Like
very rarely.
if
Like Impact
if
Core are probably the only two
Thanatos had an
examples.
offer from T1, Genji, or Hanwhan, I doubt he'd be here. But
Agreed.
they're comfortable with their tops. They don't need to plug in an unknown rookie who, even if he's good in Challenger, they don't need to do that. They wanted to keep him on a Challengers team probably, or an Academy team. But like because he didn't get that, he gets to come here, be starting top laner on one of the best teams in NA. Great, he gets paid a bag. But there's no way you're ever going to compete with LCK when you're not getting their best players. You're getting their second best, and then they're coming to a region that doesn't have a history of developing talent to that level, and you're going to try to compete against them.
Did
That
you know
makes no
Excel
sense.
almost got Zeus? And the players were like, no, why would we pick a random Korean import? And he was like, no, this isn't a random Korean like rookie. He's actually really good. And they're like, we don't want him. Apparently, like they bid and lost, but like we could have had
Yeah.
Excel Zeus, bro. Like what a
Yeah, but that
timeline.
would have he would never have worlds. He would never have like
Yeah.
look at where he's at now. Like I can't,
I
he
don't
made the
blame
right
him for
decision.
staying in Korea.
No,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
made the right decision. And that's the thing is like we can't it's not the talent, it's not the person. It's are you getting someone who's going to actually improve your region to the level of competing against international? You're never going to get that from an import. Like in my opinion, not anymore. Like Core JJ elevated the region, but he was imported, a decade ago essentially. Like Impact was so long ago. Now it's like if you get the best mid laner from the fifth best team in LCK, is he going to compete against Chovy and win? Like that's insane to even think about. Like we're not getting that. We have to just find our own and hope for the best. And then you're going to pay 10 times as much for this player. Crazy.
Yeah, that's why you have
Like
to
the
A, have better scouting than they do. So you get their players
yeah.
when they don't realize how good they are, or you just
Mhm.
develop your own process and like trust the
Yeah.
process. And actually, like the thing is, these things take years. And if you don't invest the years and you invest 1 year, one split, and you're like, oh, it didn't work. It's like look at what Dignitas. They were like, oh, we're gonna build a rookie roster. We're gonna
Yep.
develop Tomo because we kept Tomo. We want XU to be our starting jungler. We're excited for
Yep.
this project. XU has his old academy coach. Like everything is set in place. We have some veterans that don't speak English, so I don't even know how they're going to lead the game. Whatever, they didn't find good people, nepotism, whatever you
No.
wanted, and they get rid of the entire roster like one split later. Like, where is it? The same thing with Immortals. They bring in 5 players. They bring in a coach who brought in these 5 players. He's like, I know we can work this way. Everyone was excited about Immortals. They were screaming after they got eliminated. It was like, this team is actually going to do it for once in Immortals since
Yeah.
franchising. They're going to do it. Oh, wait, the coach who brought
Yeah.
everything, get rid of him. Why? oh, we're gonna tell
Yeah.
you, but after MSI, because we don't want to distract you from MSI. After MSI is like, oh, that was so long ago. We don't want to bring up stuff that already happened. Like, come
It's
on, trust the
unless there was
process.
something like behind the scenes that was like they can't talk about it, like
Hmm.
some kind of allegation or like something crazy. Yeah, it makes no sense from
But the number
outward
of
looking
times
in.
this happened just makes me feel like it's incompetence rather than being something.
Yeah.
Just the no, the
It's
sheer. If
like
it happens
you
once,
looked
sure.
if you looked at Immortals record, all you saw was you got ninth place or 10th place and that's it. Yeah, sure, let's fire the guy. But you're like, dude, even they convinced I will dominate as a believer. Like if you get that guy to believe in your team, like he had that tweet. It was a banger. He's like, "This is the best 10th place Immortals team has ever we've ever
Yeah.
seen." Like he made a believer out of Dom. I mean, that's saying something. Like
And that split was so competitive. Like it wasn't like this
yeah,
split. This split, like
no,
nobody beat the top three teams, right? The top three teams only beat each other. Last
yeah,
split, Team Liquid had lost multiple times. They weren't a top team at that time. FlyQuest had lost to Shopify.
yeah,
NRG had lost to Cloud9 had lost to Shopify. Immortals beat NRG. Like everyone was beating everyone. 100 Thieves had beat C9. Like
yeah.
it was crazy. They beat Team Liquid. Everyone was taking games off. It was very competitive, and like the
I
gameplay
I
was
I,
there.
I tweeted that too. By the end, it was like this is the most parity I've ever seen in LCS, and somebody has to finish last. Unfortunately. But like the destruction of systems is so frustrating to see. It's like someone who's been working in the space to like trying to convince GMs, coaches, owners like to develop better and better systems. To watch this last year be a complete regression on everything philosophically has been the worst thing like for me to watch. Like it's been really frustrating actually seeing like ever since the academy repeal went through, it's just been straight downhill of like every rule they come up with, every decision they make has been more and more short term. And I think part of that is the underlying belief that league is not going to be around for very long. And
Yeah, and if
so
you're
if
losing
what
money, I get it.
yeah, why would you invest in a 5-year plan when you don't know if the league's going to be here in 5 years?
Well,
So
here's the
I
counter
understand
argument
it.
to that. Here's the counter argument to that. Like instead of getting all these like big key name players and paying $1 to $500,000, right? You just do what TSM were doing or Immortals were doing, sign everyone on a minimum, and yet
Mhm,
invest in your coaching staff, right?
mhm.
And so like you could still run on like the stipend that Riot's giving you, not make any money, but actually invest the system in where you're developing talent. And that way, either A, you sell that talent so that you can fund more stuff,
Yeah.
or B, like all of a sudden people want to play on Immortals because you're the ones that are giving shots. You're not importing. You're playing just North America. You're developing. Everything is like locally based, and all of a sudden, like players like Masu start showing up on Immortals, and all of a sudden you have a very different story.
The biggest hack about that too is that you could get an entire coaching staff on min budget for way less than players.
Yeah,
Like, and you
which
get
is
more return
sad,
out
but
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, you get more. You know how many coaches I know who've coached at the tier one level, like as consultants and adjuncts, who are literally willing to do this for below minimum wage because they just want the opportunity to do it and they love the game. And it's like I don't mean take advantage of them, but like there are people literally quitting coaching the game because they can't find a job offer, and they were willing to do it for almost free. Just pay me something so I can do it.
So I can live.
But
Yeah.
like yeah, but they just won't do it. So like Draxer, the guy who, positional coach came in and coached Danny, he
For Danny,
basically stopped
yeah.
coaching. Yeah, he was great. Every player who's ever worked with him is like, yeah, he's phenomenal in terms of how he develops your individual ability to play the game. But like so many of these people just will never get a shot now because they're like, well, due to budget cuts, we're gonna make our entire league system our head coach and an assistant coach slash manager slash team like that's it. And maybe, like, and if they even have remote coaches, at least C9 still has remote coaching, but like they've gutted it. I think they're two coaches down. One in person, one remote is no longer there. Um, and I doubt most of the other teams have anything, if not, like just the assistant and the head coach. I'd
It's so much
say,
cheaper to invest in like
yeah, that's
your
the thing. You
coaching.
don't need to pay your coach $1 million. You could find plenty of very competent coaches willing to work for basically min salary, and then you can assemble a group of them. And I think people in general are willing. Here's the other thing: is like people are willing to work for less money when they think that what they're doing is actually going to result in something good.
Yeah, and then let's say
Like
you
if
win
you
a
have a
championship, and all
system,
of a sudden you can
yeah.
actually pay them more. Like they earned
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Well, like, hey, what if we attach that as a bonus? Like, you make playoffs, you get X contract, X bonus or whatever. You make a finals, you get bonus. You make it to worlds, you get a bonus, right? And then incentivizes that a bit, and it's not as cost detrimental to the team because they also are incentivized to they get something out of that, right? You make it to worlds, you should be able to sell some worlds merch,
Exactly, or a
like,
sponsorship. Did you hear
yeah,
what I Will Dominate had to say about 100 Thieves? Apparently, someone in Immortals, sorry, not 100 Thieves, someone in Immortals told him that there was a quarter where the sales team of IMT sold $0. They did absolutely nothing. They couldn't get a single
order,
sponsor. Like 4 months or 3 months where they did
yeah,
absolutely nothing. Like that is incompetence if I've ever seen it. Like
yeah. How do you make $0?
yeah.
That's I mean, I don't know. Like this goes into a whole different topic about sports, esports sustainability and like business models. Like I'm happy to see like C9 is reinvesting back into fan building rather than
Yeah,
uh
Drive 9 or whatever.
price like what are they called, like gatekeeping through price, because they used to have the Stratus program, which I actually thought was really smart,
Me too,
but
yeah.
they stopped doing it. I think actually they had good numbers too. The Stratus was actually doing okay. I don't know why they stopped it, but I guess they were like, well, we just don't want to put funding into it anymore. Maybe it wasn't actually making money, but the new one is like, okay, well now we're investing into our fans, right? Because this is not making them money. This is directly costing them money to
Well, I
give
think in the long run
stuff
it is.
away and
I,
all
I
that.
think it is
In
making
the
them money.
long run, it
Just
makes
not
them money, but
directly.
like
Not
upfront,
directly.
yeah, the Stratus program is different because people paid $100
Yeah.
and you got access to it all. So it was kind of similar, but you had to pay your way in. This is better, I think, because this is what orgs need to be doing with
I
their
think they
money
just
instead
do
of buying,
both.
yeah, multi-million, exactly, and you can have an upgraded echelon of that, like, but then it also adds on like, well, what do you actually get for your money? And unless you're gonna give them like, hey, you get 5 minutes on call with JoJo if you like,
Well, no,
like
here's the thing.
it's
Like Gen G CEO, like Arnold had mentioned, like they have a huge fan base in Brazil, but they don't know how to activate that fan base. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Just look at what every other like look at what K-pop is doing in Brazil. Like they know how to activate. They're like, oh, we can't really. It's hard for us to sell merch. Like, don't sell merch. Just get a Gen G app right for Brazil, completely free, and like just have like translated articles or whatever, like interviews, stuff like that, just news about Gen G, and then you have a paid tier for like let's say $5 worth of it'd be about 25 reais in
yeah,
Brazil, and like it that gives you access to like before game days. You just have like literally a vlog, like a 20 to 30-second vlog of like just showmake, like not sorry, Chovy or one of the players just saying something with like you can put this for every language and just change the subtitles and just put it
yeah,
in Brazilian Portuguese. And then you can do
yeah,
things like if they're going to Brazil or if something's happening in Brazil, you can actually have them like have like a little teacher be like, "Hola, tudo bem?" Like just like teach them
yeah,
some
yeah,
very small words, and Brazilians will appreciate that so much. But I can tell
yeah.
they have never talked to like an actual person who works in Brazil and understands the fan and the culture and how just someone trying to say "Hola" like would be like, oh my god, you know how like in
And
Korean, if you say like "안녕하세요," they'll be like, oh my
yeah,
god, you speak such amazing
yeah,
Korean. I love you. Like, thank you for coming to Korea. It's like the same thing in Brazil. Like, if they see you like actually investing into their country, and it's like, it's just an app, right? And like you could do so many things, and yet it's like a lot of times like one or the other, and it ends up being neither. And it's just like, why?
well, I noticed a lot of orgs have signed Brazilian creators now. Like C9 signed a Brazilian guy. They was it I think NRG did as well. There's a few orgs who signed
Yeah,
Brazilian content creators to kind of tap into that audience because it's
but are they
it's
useful?
massive, huh?
Are they actually getting their? I don't know about Brazil, but like Anita, for example, C9, or like who's their LCS? Like Meteos. I guess Meteos is a very good example because Meteos actually converts Meteos fans to Cloud9 fans. I don't think LS fans become FlyQuest fans
Yeah.
because they're LS fans. I
No,
don't
I think
think
it's
mid
different because
beasts.
Meteos is also like from cloud. Like with chicken or
Yeah,
the egg. Did Meteos become big because he was a streamer? Did Meteos become big as what he did on Cloud9 and then
I
became
think
a
because he was a
streamer? And
streamer. I think because he
yeah,
was a streamer. Like okay,
but like, yeah, it's the
Basil,
same
for
as Sneaky.
example.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
Basil's
Basil,
converted a lot of people to
yes,
FlyQuest. I think
she
like she's made
has.
a lot of FlyQuest
A
fans.
lot more than
Um,
LS or Ovly, for example. Like when they signed
yeah,
her, Mid Beast is still on Team Liquid. Like
that's
Yasuo,
crazy. I've
yeah,
never. Yeah, Yasuo is probably the
Broxa,
most egregious example. Yeah.
yeah, Broxa is
I
still
think I
on
do
Team
think
Liquid.
Broxa does. couldn't. I mean, it's always hard too because Brock. I don't. I also don't know why they signed Brox because Brox is like such an EU like person. You know, like I
Well,
think
because
of
they were
Brox. I
building
always
TLEU and they wanted like
yeah
European fans, and like it didn't. I don't think organized orgs. And you saw Nate Shaw talk about this. He's like, I
yeah
don't know about signing more creators because I don't think like they do what you think. Like they don't bring that ROI. I'm like, you're signing
no
the wrong creators and you're not
you
giving them
100%.
incentives. Like if your
I talked
contract is
about
like
this
you
with
have to
David.
do a
Yeah
show, just do a show. Like if you want to be part of Cloud9, like Meteos, for
yeah
example, you have to have a show with our play. You have to have something that goes on our YouTube channel. You have to create content
yeah.
for us. All of a
You
sudden,
have
you
to
have
co-stream our games.
yes, only our
Like
games, right? Like
yeah
imagine like Shopify signed Simu and Simu like
yeah
once a year just co-streams Shopify games. Like all of a sudden you're converting people to like it
yeah
makes sense. But if you're signing
yeah.
you Jelly or Young Jelly and like she's never being seen doing stuff for Immortals, like she's not going to convert except for like every now and then
This
there's like a
is
tournament.
this is actually why I think most orgs dropped all their creators. Like NRG dropped all their creators last year. 100 Thieves dropped a few people. C9 dropped a bunch of people. No, so like Amelia cosplay for C9 has nothing to do with competitive League of Legends. She's a League of Legends streamer, but she's been streaming NACL games. She's been wearing the Blue Otter
Well,
jersey.
that's
You know,
because
she's been
that was part of the Blue Water contract, which makes sense to me.
right.
Yeah.
But see what I'm saying? They're utilizing her to promote Cloud9. She's always wearing C9 merch in streams. She's always talking about C9. Like you have to promote the org, not the other way around too. Like I think a lot of these creators get signed to an org and that's when they made it because now they have a salary. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, I'm getting paid to do what I do." Not, "Hey, what I do needs to now also involve getting my org more visibility." Like I think that's what happened to a lot of people. Like they get signed and they just keep doing what they're doing. Like they're just content creators.
Why are
Like
you paying me
LS
money then?
is yeah, LS is a good example where okay, yeah, he's great for FlyQuest to have because he's huge in league, but all he does is his own content. He's always done his own
It's just
content.
the tier list that he puts on their thing, and
Yeah,
like, is that really bringing them fans?
it has nothing to do with FlyQuest.
Exactly.
You know, I think I mean co-streams a lot of LCS games as well, but he's never the thing for better or worse. Like LS is never gonna sugarcoat a FlyQuest match because it's FlyQuest. He's never gonna cheer for FlyQuest. He's
Well, he
gonna
does.
call
He
him
does.
out
He
like
says. He says, I'm cheering for FlyQuest because I'm signed
yeah,
with
but
them.
like that's like him saying like I hope they win, but like oh my god they're playing god awful and they don't deserve to win. It's like so I think it's a different type of thing. Like they could use him more effectively to promote FlyQuest. You know, they could do stuff like FlyQuest LS talking with FlyQuest players and like do more like do stuff with
A
FlyQuest.
podcast every
But
week, like after the games,
yeah,
just LS be like, it doesn't even have
LS
to be like
yeah.
draft or stuff. It's like, okay, tell me
Uh,
what you guys were thinking about the games. Like when you did this specific thing, like what was going on
and
in your
the,
mind?
the
Just
cool thing about LS is like they could even do like a short like 10-minute thing like grill a random FlyQuest player on their build. Like what the hell were you thinking here? You know, and just turn that into click content. Like you know, and that does bring some of LS's fan base towards at least watching competitive FlyQuest games. Um, like who's he gonna roast next? You know, roast the build, and like, he's gonna pull some random FlyQuest player and just like bring them on for 20 minutes and just grill them on what their thought process was and like why they should have done this and all this. It'd be like I would watch that. It'd be fun, and like you make it short. It's not a huge time burden for anybody. So, but yeah, I mean, we could go all day about how to better utilize creators. Jessica's like, put me in, yeah. And like, I've thought the same way of like, you know, David, like, why is 100 Thieves? David has brought 100 Thieves more ROI and more fandom, I think, than any of their actual creators have outside of like Nade Shot himself.
I think in the past 3 years, yes. I mean, when they first signed Yasuo, like he was like a big creator for the League of Legends team, and like he was
Yeah,
actively talk. Nowadays, he doesn't. I don't even know if he plays League anymore. But
I think he barely
I
plays.
think in the past 3 years, yes, David has
But
has.
then like the other creators they signed are like probably helping the org because they're like COD players or like
I don't know.
uh yeah it's very odd but it also kind of reiterates the point that like LCS to 100 Thieves is kind of the lowest priority team like compared to Valorant or like you know their COD team. CDL is like just bigger for them, like they're primarily an FPS org,
Like
so
even I'm sorry, like, it gets frustrating a little bit. But do you know Lena Lemons?
yeah.
She's huge. She's a Shopify creator. Did you know that?
No.
Okay. She has this thing with white-haired anime characters called Gojo, or just any white-haired anime characters, right? You know how awesome it would be for Shopify to be like, hey, we recognize that your audience like appreciate that about you. Why don't we make a shirt with like a little chibi version of you and being like, you know what's better than white-haired anime characters and on the back just her being like nothing, haha, like, and just sell that as merch. Have a Shopify with
Yeah.
just like a Shopify, like a cool little logo. Like Shopify branding isn't like too outrageous, and just like have the creator actually know, like, hey, me and Shopify, we're working together, do something like that. That'd be so cool. Instead of just her every now and then posting a picture with the Shopify like logo, water bottle, like that's good, yes. But you could
Yeah.
actually do
Yeah.
stuff where you're making money, she's making money, and you're getting fans. Like it's the
This
amount
is
of
the whole create.
utilization.
Yeah. This is the whole creator industry of like, how do you get ROI off of having creators? I've asked a lot of owners and like managers about that. I'm like, what do you actually get out of signing a creator? And it's like, well, they get eyeballs on them that should transiently pass on to us. And it's like, that's such bad ROI when you think about it.
They're not
Are they
content creators. They
donating
don't understand.
subs? Yeah. Are they donating subs to you? No. Like, are they sending money to you? No. Like, there's no return on this. Actually, they're not converted to watching LCS because of this. They're still watching the streamer. So unless your streamer is actively co-streaming LCS, you're not actually getting any eyes on your product, which is competitive league. So yeah, I agree. I think the creators need to do more, and orgs need to do more in getting their creators to do more. Like there needs to be more direct supervision and instruction for them because they clearly don't do that. And this is creators in general. Like whenever a company partners, like, oh, we're gonna pay you to do a Grubhub stream, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna order my food on Grubhub today on stream, and then I'm gonna stream what I normally stream. Like it's like hard to convert stuff. And it's like there are definitely ways to do it. And I think smaller creators are much more creative about that. Like, how can I return something? Bigger creators don't even have to think about it because they're just like, well, what is it to me? You're gonna pay me and I'm gonna stream and I'm gonna get 2,000 people watching regardless of what I do. So, as
You
long
know
as it's
what,
not
Grubhub?
boring.
Grubhub is a hilarious example because I always thought like, why don't they just do exactly what there's like? I'm a huge proponent for skits that don't seem like they're ads because I think those
Yeah.
come out a little bit more authentic. And like, you know what would be
Yeah.
cool? Have Jojo Pune. Like, let's just say Cloud9 has Grubhub. Just have Jojo Pune like play a game, lose, be like so frustrated, and then be like, man, I don't play very well when I'm hungry. And he was like, I need a meal before my queue pops. And he just goes to Grubhub, gets food. The food gets there, he eats, and then he has like a 12-0 Yasuo game, right? And like
Yeah.
that's your ad, and
Yeah.
that's it. And like the amount of like, I'm not making this up. That's the other thing. If you look at content creators who are actually like successful, that's what they're doing. And it's like
Yeah.
you're not even like doing the research. That's the thing. Like the people who are in charge of like these marketing, like they're not in the game. They've never done it before. Like
Yeah.
a lot of them are like old school. They want to have like TV commercials. Like if you've seen the progressive like it's just so inauthentic. It just makes no sense. And it's like, what have
One of the best content pieces I saw Cloud9 did with Kia or whatever. They they gave Blabber a hot chip. He had to eat a hot chip, and then they said there's there's a case with milk in it, but there's a key to the case, and the key is hidden in the car somewhere. And
oh,
so
that's
there's
so
he
cool.
has to search the entire car. And he's like, and it's to highlight how much space there is. He's like, there's too many things to look through. Like he's like crawling around in it and everything. I was like, it's actually brilliant. It was hot. It was hot noodles. You had to eat hot ramen and then like try to find the
Oh,
key. And I was like, this is actually really funny. Like this
yeah,
is
I
well
like
done.
that.
It's an
Kudos to
integration
Cloud9.
of the product and it's not in your face and you're laughing and you're like, oh, and it highlights what they were trying to highlight, which is there is so much space in this vehicle. It's going to take him forever to search it.
You think that was Madeline's idea?
I have no idea.
That'd be really cool. I didn't see that, but I'm very proud of them.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. I actually
FlyQuest does it
commented
really
on it.
well too. Like
Yeah, yeah,
FlyQuest with
FlyQuest has had
their
some really good ones. Yeah,
yeah, I think just like back to content creators, like what they do with Basil, like the amount of like FlyQuest jerseys that just have like her like 2D cats, and like
mhm.
they sell and they're great, and it's just like
I mean, I talked to her at LCS finals in spring, and she was like, "I think my merch is the first time like they've made profit on merch, like any or like they made actual like it sold out of everything. Like they actually made really good return on it. So I was like, you should do more merch.
do that with Lena
you know,
Lemon too, like Shopify.
Yeah,
Come
you
on,
should do that
hello,
with
listen.
anybody. That's what I'm saying. Is like anybody could do good custom merch. They need to have Amelia cosplay merch.
But it
Like
has
a
to be
Lulu
authentic.
themed
It
jersey.
has to
Yeah,
exactly. It
yeah,
has to be
yeah,
authentic to like I don't know.
yeah.
I don't watch Amelia.
Like
I've only met her at like FanFest.
so she's like
I've seen
she's
her.
like a challenger Lulu player, right? Like so just make a C9 jersey with like Lulu theme. Not only are you gonna sell to her audience, but like you might convert just random like league players who like playing Lulu to buy a jersey because it's cute. You know, it's like cute colors and all that, and it has like Lulu wings on it. Like, there's so many like ways to like these creators have spent their entire career building their own brand, and you're not tapping the brand. That's the weirdest thing to me. Like, you sign them because they're very, very good at building their brand, and you haven't tapped their brand at all.
Remember
You're trying to
Hikaru,
attach your
TSM,
brand.
TSM
Yeah.
Hikaru? Like,
Oh my
he did
god.
one video
If
with
they
them
sold,
and then went to
yeah,
Misfits.
if they sold chess jerseys or
Oh my
like, you know,
god.
like imagine a custom TSM
TSM
chessboard.
chess all during
Like,
the chess boom
oh
as
my, they're
well.
already
I would have
black and
bought
white.
that.
It's so good. Like,
uh,
you could do so much with that. Like, yeah,
I,
there's so many things they could have done, and they never do. They just they default to the cheapest thing, or their creators like somehow negotiated like basically I don't want to do anything except stream, and you guys put your logos on my stream. Like,
yeah. Also musicians. Like I have a strange like I will say this. I very rarely listen to music. I know I'm weird, but like it just distracts me, and I feel like I can't do anything if I'm listening to music. I either listen to music or don't, you know.
yeah,
And so like I don't know a lot about music, but for me, it's like the amount of teams that can just like FlyQuest are making it to finals. Why don't you have a like an artist that you have collab with or something where they're making a song based on LCS, based on FlyQuest, and you're just playing that on Shopify, playing that like people are gonna hear that song, have no idea there's FlyQuest, listen to it and be like, oh snap, this is banger, and they're gonna like learn, they're gonna follow that content creator, and all of a sudden they're like learn about FlyQuest, and you play it when fly in your co-streams, like you have LS play that song. Like there's so much you can do with like just music and like hyping up worlds at NA, like at NA at Worlds, like just have something with music. I just feel like it's such a
they
waste.
they have a DJ. Yeah, they have Tsunami.
It's like I said, I know very little about music. FlyQuest
Yeah, yeah,
have a
no. So they
DJ.
actually, you know what they did recently? I just saw this. She threw a warehouse rave, like a party, and it was like for her music video and all that. So cool, but doesn't actually get you anything with FlyQuest.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if she made like a what is it called? Not lo-fi, EDM beat for like Worlds or something because
Yeah,
FlyQuest made it to Worlds or for finals or something cool, you know. But
yeah. I think they absolutely should because they have a videographer. So FlyQuest Metamorphosis, they signed a DJ, a videographer, and Basil. And like they've only tapped Basil really to do anything FlyQuest like stuff. I guess the videographer probably did their remember their Worlds video or their MSI videos?
yeah,
Was it yeah, or was it World last? I forget. But they did some stuff. But like, yeah, they could be using Tsunami like to actually make an anthem for them. Like,
or just an anthem exactly like that just becomes the
yeah,
FlyQuest thing, you know, in
yeah, yeah,
perpetuity.
cool.
I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, but I mean, we talk all day. This is a
Yeah,
whole separate issue topic of like how orgs are horribly underutilizing like their creator industry, and it's actually just costing them money, which is crazy. Like,
because you're
I
already
don't.
assigning them. Like, just use them.
Yeah, exactly. You're already paying them for what? You know, you're getting nothing out of it. So, but yeah, we've gone on super long. I'm probably gonna hop off and grab some food. Always good talking to you though. We could probably chat all day about this stuff. Maybe we should change it from dispute everything like that. That should be a separate thing. We could also do Sidkey rants, like, and we just rant about all the stupid things we see in the industry that like we get David in on it, like
Oh,
all day.
dude,
We go on
yeah.
all day.
We literally could just do like a 12-hour stream. Oh my god. Yeah,
But
no,
I
thanks.
do
This won't
hope
be
at least
long.
somebody listen, like somebody out there hears and is like able to come up with something. Because I know it's not a knock on the people in the media departments, right? I think there's some very good social media managers. I know a lot of them, like they really do their best and they try their hardest to like come up with good content. Sometimes it's or funding isn't there or time isn't there, but like I do think the creator usage is one of the most glaring areas of weakness. Like you have people who literally have people every day to tune in that like 2,000 people a day tune in to watch whatever it is they're doing, and you're not utilizing that to benefit your org. Why are you paying these people?
Yeah, and then you complain that no one's watching LCS when you're like
Yeah.
not going to where people are.
Like every single one of their partnered creators should have been applying for a media pass day one. Like through the org should have requested post stream rights for all of them. They should have requested all this stuff. Like Riot wants to give that stuff out if you are a big enough creator. That's the thing. Like Riot only cares about eyeballs. If you are a creator, you're a Twitch partner or whatever, and you have 5,000, like subs, and you have like 1,000 active viewers every stream, it doesn't matter if you know League of Legends or not. If you ask Riot, hey, will you give me a pass to be able to go and stream at LCS? Like, I'd love to learn about League of Legends. They'll give it to you because it's good for them. And then they'll tell you, here are the things you can and can't do. Like it doesn't, like it's so crazy that the orgs aren't forcing their players to. Like, yeah, you're a Valorant creator, but guess what? Because you're signed to C9 now, you're gonna have to play League of Legends with this pro. Like you're gonna have to duo queue Jojo Pune for 5 games of ranked. Like, and that's gonna be content for the day. He's gonna coach you. And it's just funny. Like people would actually enjoy seeing that. I don't think Jojo Pune would enjoy it, but oh well, he's getting paid.
Exactly. He's being paid.
Doesn't matter.
All
Yeah,
right, man.
I
Yeah,
don't know. Maybe the goal. Okay, the new career goal is I need to make enough money to start my own org. I just need to get rich.
I I don't think we need to make our own orgs. I do think that, like, at least from my perspective, it's like I'm going to show how it's done right, and I'm going to like actively champion the people who are doing it right, the Meteoses, the Basils, like, and
Yeah,
and really champion that stuff, and hopefully in the future, like, be a person who does that for Shopify
yeah,
or for whatever team, like, and just like make it happen. And like the orgs
yeah,
that don't do it are gonna bleed. Like
yeah,
I want it to be to the point where, like, when Shopify play, there's 90,000 concurrent viewers, and then Cloud9 and Team Liquid are playing, and there's like 30. And it's like,
yeah.
well, what are they doing that we're not? And
I
it's like,
mean, people keep saying, "Oh, it's a regional fan base thing," but like, look at freaking K Corp. Look at Koi. Look at like, you know why they're big? It's not because they're French. It's because they have content creators that are big, and those content creators have leveraged their audience to support this team. They created the team. They support the team. They love Ibai. They love what's his name from K Corp. The
Kameto.
starts with an M. Yeah, yeah. They love their people. So it's like if they're telling their fans, like K Corp managed to swing an entire Twitter popularity poll because one guy tweeted about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the guy running was a K Corp fan. That's the only reason he won. Like they can mobilize the fan. It's not because he's French. That's like a very redundant way to look at it. They're like, oh, it's just a French fan base. You know what though? If these creators weren't doing enough about the content, they wouldn't care about the French team. There are no French players on K Corp. Like it doesn't. It's not a French thing. It's the fact that like their content creators actually promote their orgs the right way. And you look at Brazil, like they're all Brazilian. Why do they all love their teams?
Yeah.
They have like people around it trying to
It's the
build the fan
culture
base.
too.
They
Yeah.
it's like it's so crazy that like NA's just decided that this is a problem that we have because we're North America and we'll never be able to fix it. Yet all of your partnered creators all have viewers in the thousands.
You know what's crazy to me? And we can end with this. I know I've kept you for very
Yeah.
long. Thank you very much. You're probably like jet lagged and tired, but
Oh, no.
it's
Well,
crazy
now
to
the jet
me.
lag's waited. Now it's like daytime for me.
The problem that I see is, like, people talk about how detrimental like things like TikTok are, and Twitter, and like social media, and how much it can affect your kids and your family and like your own view, and like it becomes very political when you bring this type of stuff up when maybe it shouldn't be. Like, regardless, the idea of like everyone wanted to invest in AI last year when OpenAI and like all this stuff, and it's like so powerful technology that you can barely comprehend, and then you don't use it to build a fan base. It's like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about? You talk about how it can literally change everyone's. Well, use it to have people watch League of Legends. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't
I've
have it
been
both
I've been the
ways.
biggest like I mean most of my content I try to steer more towards like health wellness, like benefiting people. But I'm like, there's a case in which you can use all of these tools. There's tools. You can use all these tools for positive things, right? You can build effective communities. You can build positive communities. You can help people learn things. TikTok in China is primarily like one funny videos, but also how to do things. That's like one of the most popular channels is like how to do things. And there's a reason why here it's the algorithm is unethical in terms of there's no bias to it. What's popular is popular. And I'm working with Joe from Fraction. He's told me about like TikTok algorithm in terms of what is trending is not trending because it's stupid. We kind of think of it that way. It's trending because people want to click on it. So if you just create
Exactly.
content that people want to click on, it's going to trend. And there's plenty of cases in which people have gotten very popular just putting out good content around like positive things and doing things the right way. So I don't think social media is bad. I think it's how we decide to use it. That's also why like I refuse to jump on trends. I hate when brand managers or companies are like, oh, the best way to grow on social media is to jump on viral trends. I'm like, that just perpetuates the problem of you are generating clickbait. You're generating impressions for the sake of impressions. When people post on Twitter and it's purely interaction baiting, they will say some egregiously, horribly terrible things, like horrible takes, just for the sake of getting people to quote retweet it. It's like you're actually contributing to the cesspool of the internet. You're not contributing in a good way. Like,
I think trends can be good as well. Like for example, there
yeah,
was
yeah,
a
certain,
trend,
like, yeah,
like the trend, like yeah, we're book lovers. Of course, we have books everywhere we go. Yes,
yeah,
we're this. Of course, we do this. You know
yeah,
that trend. Like if gamers were to pop on that trend, be like, hey, we're gamers. Of course, we have a gaming chair. Hey, we gamers. Of course, we have a cool setup. You know, like that kind of stuff. I don't actually find a problem. I do find a problem, like what you're saying, where you're just like you're jumping on the trend that has nothing to do with. It's like a freaking makeup trend, and you're having Jojo Pune jump on that trend. It's like, does he is
yeah.
he like
Well, there was one of the ones I've been super annoyed with lately has been like this one guy on Valorant Twitter who will post the most ridiculous rosters as if it's real and then put like source Dextro and he gets like 5,000 likes and it's like not even possible. And he just does it over and over and over. And it's like, dude, you're just putting random players that people like on rosters and you're like, yeah, new 100 Thieves roster rumored. And it's like, this is clearly fake. But like, you're actually not
yeah, that's
contributing
messed up.
anything to the internet. You're just getting interaction, and it's just stupid. You're actually negatively because now people are gonna think that, and you're gonna create all these fake stories and like, it's just dumb.
That's because you
Like,
don't think of brand. You think of like, oh, I just want to get views. But if you think of like developing a brand, like that's just harmful to you.
yeah, yeah. But then like it's I don't know anything to go viral nowadays, right? And you see it in the league community all the time, like people just posting like there's just too much on the internet. Like, yeah, I think there's definitely a negative side to it, right? When you attribute a click to a click, like getting a like is a like, but it's definitely something that people need to have a little more forethought in. Like, what do you actually want to put out there?
Yeah, I'll end with this. I remember I
Yeah,
was complaining to my brother. I had a Reddit post back when I was starting, like the beginning of this year, that I thought was like so well written and so like methodical, and like someone would read that and like you just had to grin and be like, oh, I see what you did there, and like
yeah,
nothing. And then the next day I made a Reddit post that was like, it was just me like in the middle of the night, like I was like, oh yeah, like T1, ha ha ha. And then people were like, oh my god, and it was like my most viral like I was just like, it didn't even make sense. Like I don't think I used the
yeah.
same language. I probably messed up like my grammar, and people loved it. And I was like, oh my god, man.
Yeah, I mean that's how it always is, though. Like your random off the wall thought somehow blows up, and then like the one that you put a ton of effort into. I've had tweet threads like that where I'm like, really well thought. I actually think it's a more interesting topic, but it does okay. And then like my most recent like thing was like just this random thought I had while on the toilet watching the Olympics was that Olympic shooter pose. That thing exploded. I'm like, why did this become so popular? Like this is like me having a random thought, like not like not it has nothing to do with anything I actually do in terms of like esports or anything. It was just like a random thought I had. And that was like the most popular tweet I've had in like 6 months.
That's funny, yeah.
But then yeah, like the stuff I actually put out like trying to like give people valuable information on like how to take care of yourself. Like that stuff will go like 100, maybe 100 views. Like I
Your
don't know.
challenges are
But yeah,
pretty fun.
yeah, yeah. I mean, those actually don't do that well either, like in terms of like my numbers. But I don't care. I'm at a point too where I'm like, I agree with you. Like, I have an intention of like what the kind of stuff I want to put out. I'm just gonna keep putting that stuff out, and I'm gonna refine it,
Hmm.
try to make it better. But at the end of the day, I don't want to put stuff out for the sake of trying to be popular because, like you said, it will come back around where that's not even the content you want to do. So
All right, well, I think we'll end it here.
yeah,
Thank you for your
well,
time, and
always, yeah, always good talking to you, man.
yeah, maybe in
I'm
the
sure we'll
off
do it
season we
again
can
soon.
definitely do like me, you, David, and maybe get one more and just like rant
Yeah,
about dumb stuff that we seen in the
I
scene
mean,
that are like,
yeah, we'll definitely have to do one when we start seeing some off-season moves because I already know it's going to be a disaster. Like,
oh god, I plan on
the
doing disputing everything every day for Worlds, and like I'm sure I'm gonna get some episodes where it's like 100 people are just here because T1 lost, and there's gonna be some
yeah.
episodes where it's like, oh my god, did you see what Brazil just did? It was incredible, and it's like 13 people. It's
uh,
like,
I am excited that Worlds is slightly more watchable time zone
yeah.
wise this year. Like this Valorant champs, see, like I was literally every Friday, Saturday, I was staying up till like 4 in the morning and then just trying to catch up on sleep Sunday and then do it again. It was brutal. So
Yeah.
I'm glad or EU is going to be a little bit better.
Should be fun. All right, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks
All right, man.
for
Take
the
care.
fun.
Have a good
You
night.
too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God, what happened? All right, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Thank you all for watching. Sorry for the stream title. I guess it was a spoiler. Yeah, thanks for everyone hanging out. I thought the ending of just ranting about content creators, I could go on and on about content creators. I just feel like they're so not well utilized, and there's just so much um like I gave examples of like musicians, like the artists, like Basil has shown that art is like something that you want to do. Not just artists, but like what's the other thing that I was talking about? Like food. I think food is phenomenal. So many people care about food. Everybody eats food. Everyone likes watching like cooking recipes. They get millions and millions of views, and yet no League of Legends team has like done anything with it. I have a lot of ideas of stuff like that you could do. You could just bring a chef and be like, these are the champions he plays. These are the pictures. You have no idea what League of Legends is, and you just show Garen and like Darius, and like let's say this is what Adam plays, and like you go and Adam just you make a meal based on the champions that he plays, and maybe it's like some sort of like oxtail, soupy, hearty dish, and then you give like someone like Sinan Emilia, and she's like playing the Lulu and the Janna, and then you make something like more visually appealing. Like I don't know, there's just so much with different types of content creators that you could be doing that you're not utilizing. These teams aren't utilizing, and then they wonder why they're losing. They wonder why they're not making money. They wonder why they're not like. All right, I'm gonna end it here. It was like 3 hour stream. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll see you guys probably for our finals. Yeah, well after finals, I think I'll have disputing everything, and we'll talk about if Team Liquid won, if FlyQuest won, if anyone. Okay, if Cloud9 loses, I'm definitely having an episode tomorrow. Otherwise, I will see you. I'll be streaming Monday, so